Okay, Pat, you're recording.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pat Moore. I'm the Chair of Quality of Life for CB1. Our co-chair, Mariama James, I don't believe she's with us this evening. So I'm flying solo, except for, of course, Lucian Reynolds, who is our district manager. So first item for tonight is a new program that the city started called MEMD, and we have two guests with us. Marissa, I'm so sorry. What is your last name?
Senigo.
Hi, welcome.
Senigo. Yep.
And Ariel, is it Palitz?
Pallets.
Pallets? Hi, welcome. Thank you both for coming. I really appreciate this. So we would like to know about the MEND Men program.
I'm gonna actually kick it to Ariel because this was her brainchild. Oath administers the program through its Center for Creative Conflict Resolution, which is our mediation program. MEND is our first public facing mediation program. We traditionally at the center at Oath have done workplace mediation for city agencies and city employees who are in conflict. We also actually offered those mediation services to community board members as well. So that's something that maybe you guys can consider in the future, but we're here for men tonight. So I will let the Office of Nightlife head, Ariel Pallets, take the lead.
Thank you so much, Marissa, and I want to thank you, Patricia, and everyone on the board for the invitation today. It's really my pleasure, really, to be able to share more information about this program, MEND NYC. I'll give you just a brief background about me and my office. I'm the first ever executive director for the Mayor's Office of Nightlife. It's a non-enforcement liaison between the nightlife industry and community and the administration. I was appointed 3.5 years ago, almost 3 years and 3 months. But before that, you know, I'm a lifelong New Yorker. I was a promoter in clubs growing up. I owned my own club called Sutra Lounge in the East Village for 10 years. I served on Community Board 3 on the SLA committee for almost 7 years simultaneously at that time, and lived above a bar for over 30 years in the East Village. So, you know, when I got appointed, I had this opportunity to be able to address all of the issues in relation to hospitality and nightlife. And I think, you know, it's unavoidable to acknowledge that quality of life and coexistence is essential in order to be able to have a supported and respected hospitality industry, and to be able to make sure that nightlife works for everyone. Now, there's always going to be issues. A silent city isn't an option, but I always felt, especially when I was on the board and otherwise, that there was something missing in regards to the complaint process. That didn't really invite an opportunity for direct communication and compromise, and to ensure that that relationship between an establishment and a venue was solidified so that when inevitably something else came up, that they could reach out to each other, like I did with the bar downstairs for me and like I did with the resident upstairs for me. I make a little joke. Sometimes people laugh, sometimes people don't. I say back in the day when you had, you know, a noisy bar downstairs, you would go down with a bat and come up with a bottle of wine. And so I think that, see, some people laugh, some people don't. But it's really about rehumanizing the complaint process. And of course, there is room for community boards and police officers and all of the tools in the toolbox right? This is yet another tool in the toolbox for those people who would like to have a neutral mediator that is professionally trained, that can help to establish a relationship and help to communicate. So I piloted this program from day one. When I did a 5-borough listening tour to introduce the office, I had the New York Peace Institute have a table outside in every single forum that we had. And I took myself the mediation training to become a certified mediator. And, you know, inevitably residents would complain, or even business owners would complain about a chronic caller that they didn't know who they were. They didn't know the details. All they knew is that they were noisy. They didn't know at what time. Was it the microphone? Was it the bass? Was it the placement of the speakers? Was it after 2 o'clock? It helped to provide nuance that would allow for the venue to be more specific, to have more specific instruction also about what to improve. So anyway, I did that for 1.5 years or so. When the new commissioner, Joni Kletter, came to Oath in March, right when the pandemic hit, she and I had a conversation about turning their non-public facing Center of Creative Conflict Resolution at Oath that Marissa described, and to create this program called MEND, which stands for Mediating Establishment Neighborhood Disputes, which we launched in August. And even in that short period of time, first of all, we've had over 200 inquiries just to understand more about it. When you call 311 or go on the 311 app, it says complain or mediate. It's actually an option on the app as well. And this has also been expanded to help, especially during COVID, with commercial tenants and landlords, to help negotiate rent without the high cost of lawyers rather, and even business to business disputes. So mediation is really, you know, a very healthy approach, again, to rehumanize the automated complaint system, and to, I think now more than ever, find a way to support each other through this difficult time, to make sure our communities and our businesses get back on their feet. Listen, there's always room for enforcement. There's always, like, if there's an operator that just doesn't get the message, that genuinely doesn't care, I would be hard pressed to find that operator that's been through so much with so much to lose, that doesn't want to fix this problem and is ready to just subject themselves to stipulation and summonses. So I think there's just a tiered approach to try to make that connection first, and hand it over to them, give them the responsibility of their own relationship. But then if it just escalates, then of course enforcement and stipulation, all that is available, but it shouldn't be the starting point, in my opinion.
I'd also just like to add, sorry, this is Marissa from Oath, just from the Oath perspective too, because while we also oversee the center, we also are where summonses get filed for hearings. And enforcement doesn't always solve every quality of life issue, right? If a summons is issued, many summonses can just be admitted and paid. If they go to a hearing, they still will just have a civil penalty. In some instances, if it's like a DOB, you know, summons, they may have to certify correction. Other summonses related to trash, you know, or health department summonses or noxious odor summonses. You know, it's just a fine. There's no, and you guys know this better than anyone as a quality of life committee and a community board, but you know, there are those kinds of in-between situations where either it doesn't rise to the level of a summons being issued, or a summons is issued and the bad, you know, the behavior isn't fixed because they just pay the fine. And then in terms of from the city's perspective, the issue is resolved. But from the community and the residents' perspective, the issue hasn't been addressed. So I think that's kind of like the space and the void that we were trying to fill with MEND.
Yeah. And sometimes the issues don't even rise to the level of mediation. Sometimes, and what the Office of Nightlife is also here for, is sometimes just have a phone call. And I really, invite you all, if you are having an issue with a venue, to let us know. Because sometimes when, the Office of Nightlife is calling to let you know that you're having an impact, and we want to try to reinforce you into compliance and to help you and maybe communicate to you and just to serve as a partner with you. And then if it's an opportunity for mediation, it can elevate to that. So there's even yet another tier there that we can assist with. And so, MEND NYC has a website, nyc.gov/MEND NYC. You can share that. We have materials also that Marissa can share with you that you can give to the business owner, you can give to the operator, to the neighbor. And it might be a bit of an experiment, but I think it's one worth exploring, and that's what we're doing.
Ariel, just give us that website again slowly, please.
Sure. Sorry. I'm also have another event, but I wanted to make sure to be here today. So I think
so it's NYC. Yeah, I can stay on for any of like the logistical questions because I have other people covering my other event. But I will have to jump off as well. But it's nyc.gov/MEND-NYC.
And what's the phone number?
And the email address where we get inquiries is mendnyc@oath.nyc.gov. And, I did send around, and thank you, Lucian, for distributing the op-ed that Commissioner of Oath, Joni Kletter, and Ariel co-wrote in the Daily News. And it kind of described some of the solutions that we were able to come to in cases that were brought before we wrote that op-ed. So you can kind of get a sense of how the program works and the types of issues that we see. Every issue is unique. Every situation is different. But like Ariel said, this is another tool in the toolkit for either you or your residents or your small businesses. And while we aim and the expectation is that MEND NYC will always continue, with open restaurant and some of the other things that the pandemic kind of laid bare, with people working from home and increase in noise complaints and things like that, it was just really a perfectly ripe time for us to be making a public-facing mediation program. And with Ariel's vision, we were able to do just that and really have a positive impact. And we are working in, I guess, case-specific ways with our partners. So people, council members refer things to us when they can't get a summons issued or something, they will refer things to us. We loop them back in, and while the mediation agreements and solutions are confidential, we can obviously keep you abreast of things that have occurred in broader terms. Well, we can't give you specifics, but we can figure out information pathways between your community board and Oath after the mediation is done, or keep you abreast of what's going on in the process. And Lucian and I can have a discussion if that's something that you guys are interested in. And so I just wanted to put that out there that, information sharing is something that we will try to do to the best of our ability, and we want to be partners with you guys.
Great. Sounds good.
Is there a phone number for your office, Ariel?
Pardon?
Is there a phone number besides the website, a phone number for your office?
You could have my cell number if you want it, but I think the best way to do it is to have my direct email, because this is the best way to track and document conversation and to be able to. So you can please email me directly at Palitz, P as in Peter, ALITZ. I'll put it in the chat as well.
Yeah,
I'm
good.
sorry, you,
that.
A pallets and then what?
Mitch, we'll have it distributed out. I want to make sure that we get to some questions before she leaves,
Exactly.
because you've got the co-chair of licensing on and myself and others. So we'll get you the info, Mitch.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And we have, I'm sure we have a lot of questions, so we may have to continue, this. But one of the issues is I wanted to know how you interface with the stipulations so we have a licensing committee.
Yes.
And establishments come before us and we come up with an agreement with them. How does your office interface with the establishment, and do you adhere to the agreement that we have made with the establishment, or do you change that? And do you have any recourse if you change it?
No. I've heard this concern from other community boards, but again, we come from the premise that operators know what their stipulations are and they work within their stipulations. We're not here to say, well, I know you have a stipulation to only have your outdoor seating until 9, but if your neighbor's okay with it till 10, then you're okay to do it till 10. That's not what's happening here. And that's not really, this is not about renegotiating or discussing stipulations. This is about—
And we don't have the legal authority. We don't have the legal authority to change those stipulations.
Right. What I think what the value of having community board referral and participation is when the caseworkers are working with the complainant and the venue, and it comes through, let's say, the community board, then you can speak with the MEND mediators. You can let them know as part of the case building for their own background and knowledge about what their stipulations are. But at the end of the day, it's a question of fine-tuning what the complaints are about regarding the things that they find irritating. Now, if it's sound, or if it's crowds outside, or if it's a line, these are things that at the end of the day, those stipulations are in place in order to ensure quality of life for the people that live upstairs and across the street and those who complain. So if through this mediation process, they're able to say, listen, and I think, it's worth noting that these are living, breathing human beings and businesses, and at no point is it ever stagnant or ever anything always, right? It's not always quiet, always loud, always crowded, not crowded. It ebbs and flows. And the point is to be able to say, it's a little loud. Can you turn it down? There's people screaming outside. Can you do something? And to develop a relationship that's respectful and not just based on two people or two entities that are trying to ruin each other, right? Like that neighbor just wants to shut me down, or that business just wants to ruin my life. And that's what it turns into when they don't have communication. And also a thing I say is that everyone has a line between torture and tolerance, right? It doesn't matter who you are. You can take it, you can take it, you can take it until you can't take it anymore. And when you can't take it anymore, it better stop. And if it doesn't stop, you feel disrespected, you feel like that there's animosity and malice. But if when you can't take it anymore and you pick up the phone and you say, Bob, I can't take it, and Bob turns it down, that's a show of respect, and that's a show of coexistence. And that's the purpose of mediation, is to get to that place. Not so that they're quiet forever, not so that they never complain again and accept it. It's so that when there is a reason to complain, they can complain in a more productive and respectful way to each other.
So too, always I think those instances where, you have reached your limit to torture, and by the time enforcement comes out, it's a different environment, right? So
it's like
no
a
one's
week
experiencing
later.
really what you're experiencing. And so if you open up those lines of communication through mediation, you know, in the op-ed that I sent in preparation for this meeting, you know, one of the sentences, you know, is that one of the main and frequent things that comes out of mediation is simply a sharing of phone numbers. And so opening up that dialogue so that can occur. Because, I mean, it's going to be even more frustrating if you're living outside and then the inspectors come and the exact problem that you complained about is now no longer present. Then you're really going to want to tear out your hair.
Yeah, it's never immediate, right? The response isn't immediate, and this is about trying to get that immediate satisfaction, so to speak. And it also goes, sorry, I have to plug in my computer. It's based on the premise also that they are a good operator and that they do care and that they do want to work with their neighbor, you know, and also that the neighbor has a legitimate complaint. It's based coming from a place that there's intention to mend, not to turn it down, not shut it down.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So,
people, I mean,
I
at the
know-
end of the day, I think that the business wants to avoid fines, but also too, they also don't want to alienate their customers, their customer base, right? Their neighborhood residents, which are going to feed their business. So there's a lot of incentive for them to come to the table if we are contacted. And like Ariel said, I think is really an important point that if you guys are involved in that referral process, then you guys have an opportunity to inform us about the stipulations, the agreements, the other things that maybe other people, we've had multiple party mediations where more than one neighbor, you know, is mediating with the business. So it's like a group. So maybe you guys are aware.
It's not ideal.
But, I mean,
let me, before you two have to leave, let me open it up to some questions.
Yes, 4 minutes, if that's okay.
Tammy, did you want to go first?
Even though I'm chair, and welcome both of you, thank you so much for coming. I will follow up later. I would prefer if our co-chair of licensing asks questions first. I have my own, but let's see where he goes.
Okay, so Mark?
Thanks, Pat. Thanks, Tammy. So, hi, you mentioned earlier that you use something like sometimes just a phone call from you guys might be enough to trigger a result rather than start the whole mediation process. So,
Right.
could a scenario be like this sort of thing? Because the community board often gets referrals of certain complaints. Say, for example, ABC Bar has been having their patrons out on the street in their the outdoor seatings past midnight. They have speakers in there when they're not supposed to be there. And say we shoot an email to you about that, the contact information for the bar and owner and stuff like that. And would it be okay that you call them and that might be the end of the story? Most of the time, it's coming more from a more official entity other than the neighbors calling and the owners blowing off the neighbors, thinking that they eventually will just go away, not care, and get away with it. Is that a good scenario that we can work with you at?
It's a very good scenario. We get calls like that all the time from electeds, from council members, from even NCO officers, from other community boards, from venues, and from residents directly. Even through City Hall. And we really do, because we're non-enforcement, because we're dedicated to support the industry, and because we don't have any stipulation or enforcement power over them, they tend to feel like we are working towards helping. I'm sorry, did I say something funny?
No, I wasn't laughing.
Oh, okay.
That wasn't me.
We tend to.
I've got 3 kids making noise behind me.
Okay. We tend to come from a place where they feel like, you know, they can trust that we have their best interest at heart, that it's not, you know, anything else but that. And listen, is it a guarantee? No, but I think that we've had tremendous success. We've been here 3.5 years at this point. The experimentation, especially throughout this entire COVID experience, they feel they actually really appreciate getting a call, because sometimes venues get 311 calls that rack up 20, 30, 40 calls, and they don't even know they have complaints until
Right.
they become a huge issue.
And then they
so,
get fined at some point. And sometimes you want to avoid this for, my approach is always the carrot and stick thing. You want to, and all these businesses are trying to get back, and we understand that. And I'm usually the hardest one trying to vet liquor licenses, but I've actually just had a temporary change of heart to let them recoup their business and finances and stuff. But at some point we have to get a little bit back to normalness, I guess is the word. But so this is good then. So you might get like a list from us, and it could be anything from non-compliance to stipulations that they agreed to. And we know that you're not negotiating it. So you would do the phone call first, and would there be anything documented as far as the phone call or a follow-up email? So at least we called you once and you're not
I think it's
complying.
possible.
Hold on, wait 1 second. I just want to clarify that when Ariel is like right now talking about we, she means her Office of Nightlife. So that would be the first
Understood.
step. Okay,
Right.
good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Got
MEND is the mediation. Office of Nightlife, just so you know, it's me plus 3 people for
Right.
27,000 venues in 5 boroughs. I think that the best result about if you leave me a message about a venue and I call them and then you never hear another complaint again from the resident, I think
Okay.
we won. If
Okay.
it happened again, I would like if I have the bandwidth, I will, but it's not something that I really like.
Okay.
You can imagine.
So once you made that contact, you can just shoot us back an email that you spoke to them. So at least we know that they've been spoken to. And I mean, if things get better, great. If they get worse, then we know that they didn't listen to you. Does that sound good? Okay,
That's
thank you. Thanks. Okay. So the office can help set this up, Tammy, a little bit, I guess.
I mean,
we want to
Yeah,
set up.
we could. You guys can also copy Mend NYC on certain things too, or you can start with Mend NYC. I mean, we can have another like logistical conversation about what makes the most sense in terms of process. Sometimes her picking up the phone makes perfect sense. She doesn't have a lot of bandwidth, and Mend NYC may want to take some of that over. But we can have a logistical conversation. We will obviously share our contact information and our touch points with you guys and see what kind of groove I guess we all get into together, what works best for everyone.
Can I ask a really quick question before I have to? I apologize for jumping the line.
yes, and then we
Please.
also have to go.
So,
We just wanted to make you familiar with the program today.
Ariel, I mean, one of the major questions I have is, it's 3 people for thousands of venues in New York City. If we're lucky, a call gets made, but or an email or anything or something. What process, the problem that I see in the disconnect between the public and what has happened is the SLA does not always find out unless the police arrive and document. So if the MEND program does not work and it does not come, is there any reporting that comes from your office or MEND to SLA?
No,
Okay.
we're a city agency, a city office.
So
We're
how
in the
does
city.
the SLA know that this is a problem?
They have
particularly-
you, they have the police, they have all the other enforcement. I'm not here to enforce on the industry. I'm here to help resolve the issues and to support into compliance. But there's a million routes for the SLA and for the police and all the city enforcement agencies, plenty. What I want to try to do is to actually help resolve the issue without enforcement, if it's possible. That's my role.
Thank you.
And I just want to speak really quickly from the oath perspective, since we adjudicate all of those summonses, that participating in a mediation even if it's related to the issue that actually results in a summons or a future summons, does not kind of give anyone any extra weight at the hearing. They can't go into the oath hearing. These are totally different streams, process streams, right? So you can get a noise complaint. We can like mediate that. If they get a summons down the road for a noise complaint, they can't walk into their hearing and say, well, I participated in Amend NYC. That's not a valid defense, right, to that noise complaint generated summons.
But I will
So,
say, yeah, I mean,
but we are
that's
trying to get on the front end of those things and actually, like I said before, target the actual quality of life issue, because most places will just pay the fine and actually the behavior that's causing the quality of life issue isn't corrected, right?
because
So
they don't
that's
know
what
what
we're really trying to
it
get at.
is.
Right.
But to that point though, if you do have a bar that has historically had a chronic complainer that is known to the board, and if their license is coming up for renewal, and you do happen to bring them in for renewal with complaints, and the neighbor and that person who has historically had an issue with each other found resolution and were able to mend their relationship through communication, then that should be perhaps taken into consideration, if for yourselves. Or if they said, well, they didn't want to mend. It is a window into a willingness versus a non-willingness, and it leaves an opportunity for success and improvement over, more abrasive tactics, which may eventually be needed, but maybe not at the beginning. And let's just try and get to them at the beginning as soon as we can.
Good, good. So, all right, I know there are lots of questions, and I know you two have to go.
You can email me questions as well.
Okay, do you have time for one more?
Sure, one more.
Justine, I think. Yeah, I see Justine.
Okay, sorry, I'm muting myself. Thank you so much. I'll be quick. So I guess I think this sounds like a lovely program. I'm wondering, how is it funded? So I know it's free to the people who are taking advantage of it. So whether it's a neighbor calling in or it's a restaurant, maybe would even engage you, right? That they've been having lots of complaints or people who are unreasonable in their minds. That's free to them. How are you funded?
Well, there's
So
two
we fund it.
offices.
It's through oath. So what the pandemic allowed us to do was, because a lot of internal mediation stuff at city agencies was not really occurring because people weren't in their offices to have conflicts, we were able to do a public facing thing, and kind of switch our resources. Two, these things are done via Zoom right now, and probably will continue to be, just because some people feel like it's safer. We want to offer a safe space. Maybe they're not ready to come face to face.
My question is, where is the money coming from the city to pay for this?
It's in Oath's budget.
Is it Oath's budget? Okay, and Oath's budget.
Oath
And
is
that's part of the
administering
mediation.
it.
Yeah. Okay. No, because I'm asking because this sounds like an interesting way to, if it's possible and it works, it's a great way to de-escalate situations, which could become calling the police or something like that. So that's really great. And shoot me for throwing this word out there, but I'm wondering and asking about the funding in terms of defunding the police, because if there's money that's needed to go to support this program, assuming that it takes off and really is working, money coming from police, if they're not responding to these things in the future, might be a sensible thing to do, because this is exactly the kind of thing that I believe people are asking for, having mediation, having conflict resolution in the situation versus people coming in to punish with guns, because that leads one way. Conflict mediation and conflict resolution leads a different way. And I get, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean,
we also have really great partners, because we have, partners in with the Peace Institute and with other CDRCs, community dispute resolution centers. We also work with law clinics. Our head of the conflict resolution is the head of a mediation clinic at NYU. His deputy is the head of Brooklyn Law School's mediation clinic. So they have students who are interested in taking mediation classes in law school involved. So we've been able to be very creative in the ways that we administer it and administer it well. We haven't
great.
had something that goes to mediation that hasn't resulted in a positive result.
Well, I guess what I would say is keep in contact and keep the communication flowing, because if this does
For
take
sure,
off
we would love
and there's
that.
other ways for it to branch out in terms of conflict resolution and mediation, I think that's wonderful.
And the mayor
And-
actually just established formally our Center for Creative Conflict Resolution within OATH, within an executive order in February, which is the event that the video is about, that
Got it.
Lucian distributed to the
Yeah.
group. So it's
Okay.
now formally established. So, yep.
Great, thank you. I
Pat,
know
I
you both have to
need
go.
someone to recommend.
I know
to-
Ariel has to go. I will try to, I can read through a couple more questions.
Okay, that's great.
Okay, great. Thank you,
Ariel,
and
thank you so much.
my pleasure, and I look forward to continuing the conversation and bringing our city back together.
Sounds great. Enjoy
Bye.
your
Thank you.
evening.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
So we can. take
Thank
a
you
few
so
more
much,
questions.
Ariel, for joining.
Who else had a question? Raise your hand. I can't see. Well, just unmute yourself and speak, because I can't see hands.
I raised my hand, Pat. Mitch.
Sorry, Mitch, I couldn't see it. Go, Mitch.
Okay, I forget the person's name who's still with us.
Marissa.
Marissa, I wanted
Marissa,
to.
thank you.
Thank you. I know that both you and Ariel had talked about, not reporting to the SLA if you try to mediate and something because you're not an enforcement agency. And I respect that point, but just as a suggestion, there could be no harm in, pressing a button just to report that mediation was tried, because, and then if on whoever's side wasn't successful, because while you're not an enforcement agency, there should be, the thing that we come up with all the time is one agency doesn't speak to another. I know we're dealing with city versus state, but if there was some slight communication, these things just show intent. And I really think that it would be beneficial to both parties, depending on, who's more on the right or which person is more egregious, the club owner or the tenant, to report, just press a button and said, this was tried. We still got more complaints from the tenant, or this was tried and we still got more complaints from the bar owner. And I really wish that you would consider that, because the thing that we come up all the time is the non-synergy of different agencies working together.
And I appreciate that. One thing is that mediation agreements, if they are come to, are confidential. But even besides that, a complaint that we would mediate may not be anything related to their licensing agreement or their stipulation with the SLA. So it could just be that,
Okay.
can you please have someone take out the trash
Right.
at a certain time. So I mean, us doing that on every instance would make it seem that there are that we're flagging something because it's confidential. We would be flagging something to the SLA. The SLA would then assume that it's in relation to their stipulation when we don't necessarily have access to that stipulation, and so that assumption would be incorrect. But my point earlier about our partnership with community boards is that you guys are able to have, a continued interaction with us in terms of, one, helping us prepare for the case so that our mediators know what stipulations or other parties are in place, or other complainants. You can inform the process that way. And also, too, I can work with Lucian or others, chairs of this board, to set up some kind of communication pathways where, if you're referring, what the issue is, and we can say the issue with this one person was resolved. While I can't say how it was resolved because of confidentiality, maybe.
Melissa, I'm not even going
Those
there.
are just two things for you to consider. For sure, I've been in government a very long time. Lucian knows this, and I understand that. Also, too, working at OATH, where we have 20 different city agencies sending summonses to us, I have a very unique perspective about how the agencies do not understand what the other agencies are doing, and how that can result in, I guess, in unequal enforcement and other issues. So I totally get your point. I just wanted to lay that out there in terms of the considerations. It's not just bandwidth. It's that sometimes in many instances it wouldn't make sense. But it is an example of why you guys, I think, should be proactive in referring things to MEND, because you can inform that process and then you can go to the SLA when their thing is up.
Well,
you know what I mean? Because you would have that knowledge.
That's,
Which
you
is
know,
what we end up doing anyway.
that's so much more bureaucracy than what I was even referring to. But okay, continue, Pat.
Right. Thanks.
That's part of the problem.
Any other questions? I can't see hands, so unmute yourself. No? All right. If not, we are going to move on. One last chance. Any other questions? Nope.
Marissa,
Okay,
thank you so much.
Marissa, thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
I hope that it was helpful. I hope that it was positive, the things that you heard, and I really do encourage us to continue our dialogue around this.
I hope you're open. Yeah, I hope you're open to possibly coming back at another time if we wanted to discuss something,
yeah,
a particular issue.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and certainly we can have discussions in the interim, and see if we can sort things through via email or whatever. But the main message that I think Ariel and I do want to get across is that we are problem solvers and we want to be, part of the solution, and we want to work with you guys to be part of the solution. And you guys are the boots on the ground hearing a lot of the problems. And so, I encourage you guys to refer things to MEND, to work with us to create communication pathways, and we'll work together just to make your district a better place to live and work. And
Sounds
also
good.
survive
I
as a
just
small
want to
business.
clarify one thing with you. So we have two committees that work with conflict. We have our licensing and permits committee, which Mark is the co-chair, and they actually are the ones who grant the license and put the stipulations in and, go to testify at the SLA. And then what we've done is if a entity comes back for a renewal and they have had issues, in the community, they come before the quality of life committee. Or even before they go, if they're, even if they're not coming up for a renewal on the license, they come before. So there are two sides of our board, so to speak, just so you know.
I mean, even a simple thing may be, and I can discuss this with the center because they're the experts in what is confidential and what is not. But even maybe if a venue is coming up for licensing, I mean, something that would be possible is you reach out to MEND and find out if we have received any complaints, if the venue has agreed to mediate, and whether or not there was a mediation that occurred. I'm fairly positive that we can give you guys that information. So if you guys wanted to work that into your process, that's something good that we can discuss.
Mark, you hear that? So that you should take that back to licensing. And yes, we will try to work that in, because if we have a problem venue, then we will reach out to you and find out if you have received complaints, if mediation was offered.
Yeah, and if we've got one person on board. See, the difficult part is getting both parties to agree. Usually the venue comes because they don't want enforcement, right? They want to come to the table. But there are also instances where the venue does it, and that's where our partnership with Office of Nightlife comes in very handy, because like Ariel was saying, she can pick up the phone and say, this is really in your best interest. Believe me, I'm calling from the Office of Nightlife, and so get them to the table. But there are instances where, the neighbor really wants to mediate. They think it's a great idea. They've heard our spiel. Once they've sent an email through 311 or contacted us through our website, and then the venue has no interest, or they're avoiding us, or we can't track down the owner, or you know, and so, you know, there are instances that you might want to know about, like, and we
Right.
track all of that stuff. So, like, we reached out 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. We were, you know what I mean? So we can give you that information, particularly if they didn't mediate, because I think
Right.
there's no confidentiality attached to those instances, right?
Right.
And those are the instances that I think you guys would be most interested in, right?
Yes.
Where, you know, someone wasn't being a good actor or wasn't being really, you know, trying to be a good neighbor.
Okay.
So these are definitely things that we work with you with, so work with you on. So I hope you will consider that, and we can definitely talk about how and when you send those requests, if that's something that interests you, you know, what's most digestible for us, how that information comes in. I don't know how, I was never on a community board, unlike Ariel, so I don't know, you know, if there's a slew of restaurants or businesses that go before licensing all at once, or if it's,
Well,
you
we
know,
do, but we only have some that are bad actors, you know, so.
right. So I'm just saying that we can work with you to create a process that works for both of us, if that's something that you're interested in, and checking to see, you know, because maybe getting like emails like every other day about this venue, that venue, this venue, you know, that's going to take a lot of bandwidth. Maybe you email us once a month with a list of things that are coming up, you know. But we're here to work with you. Like I said, we're just trying to be problem solvers and be creative and innovative about how we go about it, and fill a void that we thought wasn't being filled. So with that, I will let you guys get on to your normal business. Lucian obviously has my contact information, and I encourage anyone who wants my contact information to ask him for it. And Lucian, feel free to give it out. And
Will
yeah,
do.
email me questions. And thank you guys so much again for having us.
Thank you for coming. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
I think I have like 10 more minutes left in my next call. So thank you guys.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Okay, so that's interesting. And Mark, you're there? Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll take that back to and discuss, you and Susan and Megan can discuss that.
Who's on staff today with us?
It's me.
Lucian.
Oh, did you? I wasn't writing things down. Can you just give me like a 2-sentence cliff notes on that so I can forward it if you took notes?
What I can do is
Yeah.
I can forward also the op-ed that they wrote. I think that is
Okay.
a pretty good description.
And their contact.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and I'll give you the
I'm
rest of Sinigo's.
I'm kind of like
contact.
floating right now. I might have to leave in a few minutes. So
Okay.
okay.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
on to the next topic. And so we now are going to have, once a month, we are trying to have interaction with our local precinct and have them to come and tell us what's going on and us to be able to ask questions. So I'm not sure if Officer Nelson is here tonight.
He intends to be on. I was
May not be.
communicating with
But-
him earlier, and Rodney Rosado from the 5th also said he would be here. So I've
Okay, so
emailed
if
both
not-
of them. We may have just to take the agenda a little out of order.
I was going to say, if they're not here right now, let's move on to the next thing. And actually, maybe we should do number 4, which is the scree and the dree. Because do we have anyone here for the property tax?
Detta's here. Detta's our ace in the hole for anything
Detta,
property taxes.
Detta, would you mind? Do you have to rush off? Would you mind if we did our topic of the scree and the dree first? Because I think we're going to write a resolution or a letter. So, Detta?
I'm staying here. Yeah, I mean, there's
So
a
it's okay with you
candidate,
to have to rush off?
there is a candidate forum for controller that is at 7, but it's okay, you know, I'll stay here.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much.
And just, I'm
All
gonna
right.
throw out, my condo board is meeting tonight, so at 7 o'clock, I'm gonna have my attention split between 2 things. So
Okay.
I'm gonna try to be present.
Well,
but-
I have to tell you, it's like, 6 minutes to 7, so I don't think we could cover.
No,
the
no,
whole
I agree with you. I agree with
Right.
you. Pushing it, doing screen tree is probably better, but I don't know where I'm
Right.
gonna fall in. So
Okay,
it's very
so
kind of
we'll-
frustrating, but that's.
Let's do it. Let's not talk and let's get on the screen and then we'll see where we are. So Diane Stein, just explain, you brought this to our attention. So give us a little bit of why you brought it to our attention and what you'd like to see us accomplish, if you're willing to.
Okay, a little bit of background. IPN is a former Mitchell-Lama, and when the landlords, we were a rental, and the landlords took us out of the program, we were not covered. The Mitchell-Lamas that were occupied after 1974 were not covered under rent stabilization. So we have several tenants, we have a group of tenants that are stabilized through an agreement with the landlord, but are not eligible for programs like SCREE and DREE. And this extends to there's some other former Mitchell-Lamas that fall into this category as well. And so as the people who we call them LAP tenants, the landlord assistance program, as they retire, and the rents keep going up and up, it would be beneficial to help them stay in their homes. And when Daniel Squadron had been our senator, he had talked about doing some legislation that would expand the eligibility of these two programs. SCREE is a senior citizens rent increase exemption program, and DREE is the disability rent increase exemption program. And then when he left, Senator Brian Kavanaugh took over this. So anyway, the bill is now it's currently in the Committee on Aging, and there's a legislative session coming up June 10th. And I'm hoping the community board can support this legislation. Now, this bill is actually, I said, it relates to having the household income limits for eligibility for these exemptions to increase follow increases along inflation. So there's a provision in this bill that would also include expanding eligibility of SCREE and DREE. So it's not the whole purpose of this bill. So that's what, but I'm hoping that we could support. It's S2864A, and I'm hoping we could support it and maybe have something that say make sure it includes that provision. Because sometimes bills get changed because it has to go through committee and then the Senate and then through the Assembly. So it's going to be a long process. Like I said, this was being talked about when Daniel Squadron was in the office.
Diane, can I ask a quick question? Does SCREE
Uh-huh.
and DREE apply to condos and co-ops or only rentals?
I think
If you know.
I think Mitchell-Lama co-ops, I believe, are eligible. I believe.
Let me interrupt you too. Lucian, did you want to fill us in on, give us a little more explanation?
Yeah, I mean, I can read out the description of the bill as placed on the state Senate website. So I'll go ahead and read that out, and I think it provides kind of in a very technical sense what it does. But so the purpose of the bill is intended to ensure that the eligibility for SCREE, DREE, SCHE, and DHE is not eroded by inflation, and that tenants in the former Mitchell-Lama buildings in New York City may benefit from SCREE and DREE. So I think SCHE and DHE are those may be related to homeowners, and I think that's something that we could explore a little bit. So this bill may benefit homeowners, but scree and dree, I believe is more on the rental side. And the two, the two provisions, just like what Diane said, that one is, instead of just being a statutory limitation that can become outdated and far out of whack compared to housing costs and rents, they'll attach it to CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which will allow it to react to inflation and reduce the need to have the legislature come back and reset the maximum allowable income. And so that's a really, generally speaking, in policy, that's a great thing. Because if you have a legislature that is oppositional to renter assistance, they could just ignore that maximum income allowable, and people will languish. So by creating a statutory, attachment to CPI, they take it out of the hands of the legislature in the future. So I would say that that's a really strong provision. And then by making tenants of former Mitchell-Lama buildings eligible, you're creating a huge potential increase in the number of people who could benefit from these programs at all, especially in two different developments in our neighborhood.
Let me just ask you a question. So it isn't just former Mitchell-Lama, it's anyone who is rent stabilized, correct? Anyone who's a renter who's rent stabilized? Or anyone who's a renter who gets to a certain age and has a certain income?
Well, so
Okay.
SCREE is for seniors and DREE, I think, is for disability related.
Right.
But Diane, you could probably go into this better than me.
Yeah, it's you have to be, there's age and there's income, and you have to be rent regulated, stabilized, or rent controlled, or I think there's HPD, but you have to be regulated through an agency like HPD or HCR, which used to be DHCR, which these Mitchell-Lamas are not regulated. They don't fall under those they're not regulated by an agency, but by an agreement with the landlord. They're not eligible, but
So what you're saying is that they're not eligible.
Any renter, it's they have to be stabilized through one of these agents,
Okay.
regulating agencies.
I mean, maybe it's just me. So wait, let's stop for a sec. So what you want is that you want us to write and to ask for an inclusion that former Mitchell-Lamas that were not rent stabilized or not rent regulated.
It's in there. I just want to support this legislation.
I get you. Gotcha. Okay. Any questions from anyone else?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, so somebody else can go first. I don't mind.
No, go ahead, Mitch. Go ahead.
So Diane, similar to what Pat said, I know that the SCREE is age and income, but you must be in one of these rent stabilized or some type of program buildings. So it has to be, you have to meet three steps, correct?
Yes, I'm not an expert, but yeah, I mean, if you.
So then I have another question. So assuming that that's true,
Yeah.
that we're all on the same page, if you're in, like, say, one of those, like rent stabilized, like those programs, the lottery programs, that 25, 30 years, whatever, and then the building opts out of the program. So now technically, building now opted out of the program is not rent stabilized, but now you're over 65, you're making a certain income. Can SCREE help you in that situation?
I don't know if that would be, I'm not sure if that would be covered under this legislation. I don't know
Okay, so then if I can make a suggestion.
of each complex, yeah.
Pat, for many years, I don't know, I've been trying to lobby whenever there's an elected official like that comes to us, and maybe like this bill is already set, and I support the bill 1,000%, but maybe we can come up with something else where if you're a senior citizen and you're living in one of these buildings, you know, in our neighborhood, like affordable buildings, and now 25, 30 years, the building opts out of the program. I've always been trying to lobby that the senior who's been living there 20, 30, 40 years can be grandfathered in instead of being kicked out when the rent goes up 10 times multiple. So I'm hoping that that's something, because it doesn't seem that this bill covers that. While this bill is fantastic, I wish we can also like.
Okay, so Mitch,
Yeah.
I think that we need to get someone to come in and, you know, a guest. So that's not this meeting, but let's
Okay.
talk, we'll talk to Lucian and we'll see, because I totally agree with you.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure how, you know, we can go about that, but let's see. Lucian will be, of course.
Those are some of the things that Squadron was trying to address, and then it kind of got on the back burner. But thank you.
All right, any other questions? So we don't have to write a reso, we can just write a letter of support, which is what you suggested, right, Diane?
I mean, whatever, I mean, I'm, you know, not as familiar with how these things work, how they get to, you know, who they go to, but either one, if a letter of support you think would be preferable, then.
Well, let's ask Lucian, which one?
I think you should vote to pass a resolution because that would empower the office to issue that letter. Because I'm not, you know, we don't have a current position on this particular bill at the moment. So this would set our position.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions? Okay, so all we would need to do is write a reso as simple as we are in support of the bill number, right?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. It'd be a pretty straightforward resolution.
We don't need to go. Does anyone feel like they need more information? Okay, so.
Well, we want to make sure to emphasize what Diane was suggesting,
I'm
right?
sorry,
To make sure.
say a little louder.
We would need to make sure to emphasize what Diane was suggesting to like, so that the bill doesn't get so washed out. Like we need to say specifically what we support about it, right?
I don't know. I don't think we're going to change the bill, so or ask them to change it. Anything.
The Mitchell-Lama stuff, Mimi, is in that bill, so we just say we strongly support every part of the bill.
Right, Diane?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I don't know if you want to, I mean, if it would strengthen it to emphasize, you know, that, you know, like support the bill as written or something like that, or without, you know, I'm not sure language, you know, how you want to say.
In other words, you don't want them to take anything out, so you want us to
Right, yeah.
say that you support the bill as it is right now. Okay.
Yeah, I mean.
Anyone else have any questions or any information they want to offer?
Pat, you have two hands up in the attendee section.
Okay, I can't see them, so you want to tell me who they are? Or...
Sure, you have Kim Barriero and Diane Lapson.
Oh, Diane. Hi, we miss you.
Okay, I guess I'll start with Diane. Diane, you're unmuted.
Hello.
Hi.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Yeah.
Wow, old times.
Exactly.
So, I just wanted to say that originally, when we were talking to Daniel Squadron, we wanted to include not just former Mitchell-Lamas. He was talking about exactly what you were just saying, that anybody with a certain salary, certainly that right now it was easier to work with regulated buildings already, you know, buildings that had been in a program. But the original concept was to extend it so that seniors in the city had some kind of protection and could stay in their communities.
Yes, I remember that.
I think that having someone from the senator's office to hear that the community board is concerned with not just former Mitchell-Lamas or anyone who's rent stabilized, rent controlled, as Diane was saying, but that we were looking to see how to protect all of our seniors in New York with better programs would be the important discussion. Although I know this legislation is going, it would be a start. So at least if this legislation, which is going to be very difficult, can go through, because people were cut off, as Diane said, by 1970 something. If you weren't in the program at that point, you're not covered by this. But the bigger picture is how do we protect everybody? And that's what Mitch was talking about. And that is what Squadron originally was talking about, as well as lots of people in city council. So I think it's something worth the community board going after and trying to get the local politicians who are, not worried about right now that they're leaving, people who are actually staying in the game, to talk about how to protect everybody.
Will you
It's not-
come back? We have
it's-
that discussion.
Yeah, it's not an easy subject because, of course, in a free capitalist society, as Diane and I were talking about last night, to tell a landlord, well, you have seniors, they're going to have to be, you're going to freeze their rent at some point, may make them a little reluctant to have seniors. And that's what, there has to be incentives involved, maybe tax breaks, something that would make them agree. But there's most of the seniors in our community have been here for 40 something years.
Yes.
Not getting so many new seniors in as the rest of us who are already here, and we'll have to. I did actually type something up and send it in. I don't know if you saw it, but maybe you will. That speaks a little bit about the subject and how we feel.
Well, I think what we'll do tonight, Diane, is just to write a reso in support of the bill as it stands. And then going forward, we will try to get Senator Kavanaugh and, some of our other elected officials in and try to craft a new reso asking that they tackle supporting seniors.
Start looking into this.
Right.
And I would definitely help you guys with that. And I would also, reach out to the politicians. And I think that, this is a really big issue because the one amazing thing about the former Washington Market neighborhood, which became Tribeca,
Right.
just like Cinderella suddenly turned into Cinderella. The pumpkin in the story, and going back to the pumpkin, is that without the middle class, you don't have a community or any neighborhood. And without the people who built it, there ain't nothing here except a bunch of strangers who don't even talk to each other.
Yeah.
So I think that, this is an ongoing issue with our community. Like, how do we take care of the people who were the real pioneers down here, who came here, helped
Well, we had a
to get.
grocery store.
I know I'm preaching the conversion.
Pat, can I ask Diane one question that might be, Diane, if you're on SCREE and so the landlord freezes the rent, but doesn't SCREE make up the shortfall so the landlord's still getting his rent?
Yes.
I don't know if that's what happens, because how could New York City afford that?
Right.
I don't know. I honestly, you know what? I thought they got some kind of,
A tax break or something?
like a break, but I would have to.
What happens is that
It's
the
all
rent
over
is
the
frozen.
internet.
No, but
Actually,
Diane
Yeah,
Lapton, I thought that your rent got frozen and then the city, whichever agency it is, made up the difference.
Right, just like on a one of those other.
voucher.
Yeah. So they're getting their money, so they shouldn't have any problem.
But
Hey, everyone,
I think going
just-
forward with the new legislation we're talking about, it's a whole new ballgame.
Okay.
I don't know, Detta, did you want to?
Yeah, Detta seems to have some background in this.
Yeah, let's let Detta talk.
Right, okay. So, yeah, SCREE and DREE are for renters, and SHE and D are for owners. And yes, it's for SCREE and DREE are for people who are in either a rent controlled or rent stabilized apartment, run where that rent is monitored or set by the state, by the Department of Homes and Community Renewal. And to qualify for SCREE or DREE, yeah, you have to be making less than 50,000, and your apartment most likely went into some sort of rent regulation prior to 1974. And yes, the building owner actually gets paid a credit on their property tax for the difference between the rent regulated rent and the frozen rent that it becomes with the SCREE or DREE. So they get a credit for that amount difference. And just also for the homeowner exemption for she or D, that income limit is 58,400. I mean 58,400. Although you only get the big discount, the 50% discount off your property taxes if your income's under 50,000. And I will just say, always Mitchell Llamas are regulated by the state more so than the city. So that's always like a confusing issue with when you're trying to deal with Mitchell Llamas at a city level. So I was just trying to offer some clarity, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
We appreciate that. Thank you. So at this moment, though, let's stop the discussion because we're going to have this discussion again. And Deb, I hope you'll join us when we do. And let's just vote on whether we want to write a reso or, vote on the reso saying we support the bill as it stands now so that we can move along so that everyone can get on to what they want to do. So
Could
can we
we strongly support?
Strongly support is fine.
Thank you.
Lucian, do you want to take a vote? Want me to?
Sure. And just let me run through the top line of this. This is a resolution supporting Senator Kavanaugh, who is the main sponsor's bill. It's Bill S2864A in the Aging Committee for setting SCREE's maximum income limits to minimum income limit to CPI and to allow for Mitchell Llama tenants to be eligible. And we so strongly support that bill.
Yes. And is that something that that bill, can you send out an attachment to everybody?
Sure. And I'll actually put a link to it in the chat right now.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have to look at it right now, but
Sure.
I don't know how do you get the information out of it? You can tell me another time of the chat, but all right.
I'll email it to the committee as well.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to go through.
Do we have a quorum?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, actually quite a few members today. Moore,
Yes.
Amoruso, he may have logged off. Kucha,
Yes. Right, we're voting for this. I like it. Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Kay,
Because I'm too confused about it.
Kettering,
Yes.
Schneck, Bob, are you there? Let me just check and make sure I didn't lose him into the. Bob Schneck,
And I saw him earlier. I don't see him now.
Lewinson,
Yes.
Goodkind,
Yes.
Stein,
Sam?
I would think she'd be a yes. So, I mean,
You're muted.
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry. I thought I was unmuted. Yes.
Okay. So just so you know, we're just at quorum until Bob either signs back on or so. No one
Okay.
leave.
I don't think we have anything else that we're going to vote on, though.
Yeah, I think there's one more thing,
Okay.
the property tax thing. But
Okay.
you actually have two other hands up, Kim Barriero and Elizabeth Berger.
Oh,
have
I'm
their hands up.
sorry, Kim.
That's okay. Hi, this is Kim Barrero. I just wanted, Diane Stein had mentioned she wasn't sure if the SCREE and DREE was eligible for the Mitchell-Lama co-ops. And they are, because my aunt lives in LaGuardia Place and the Mitchell-Lama co-ops there, and she does qualify and receives SCREE. So I just wanted to mention that. And also, it's my first time at this meeting. I want to thank you all for your service to keeping our neighborhood in a good quality of life. So
Well,
thank
thank you. Please come often. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there was another hand up?
Elizabeth Berger, you're unmuted.
Wait a second.
Ms. Berger, you can unmute yourself if you still wish to speak. Your hand is up.
I unmuted and now it says mute.
You're unmuted now.
Okay. I've lived in Independence Plaza for 46 years. And I had wanted to say way earlier that as Diane had mentioned, that the huge majority of people in the two possibly, hopefully eligible buildings in this community, that's where most of us stand. Most of us moved in the 70s. And I wanted to mention that I'm not sure, Diane, I haven't read the bill, so I will ask you to send me the bill. But the main things in this is really that you can't, the Mitchell-Lama, if you were not Mitchell-Lama in 1974, you're not eligible, even if you were Mitchell-Lama for 20 years after that, which really catches pretty much all of us. So that was the one thing. And then the two thing, of course, was adding people who had been Mitchell-Lama and who the Mitchell-Lamas pretty much run out for, most of the seniors at this point. So I just wanted to say that I would guess that those are the two overriding things that we're looking for, is for a previously Mitchell-Lama building to allow the tenants who were under Mitchell-Lama to get SCREE, and also, and to agree that 1975 or, whatever could be the cutoff, not 1974, which is tough for,
Yeah.
people that moved to Tribeca then. Anyway, that was.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Come back and join us.
Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so any other hands up?
That's all of them.
All righty, so we have all, it passed, right? We all
That's
pretty
right.
much agreed. Okay, so we'll come back to this topic again and have a guest come in. All right, Diane?
Thank you, Pat. And
And
thank you,
so
everybody.
Miss Diane and Miss Diane, this is for you two to stay on top of Lucian and I's out, okay?
Okay, it was time sensitive because 10th is according to Kavanaugh, it was the next legislative session. So I appreciate it.
Good, we got it done. All right, so we want to move along. I see that Officer Nelson is here with us. I don't know if Officer Rosado has joined us.
I don't believe so. Is anyone here from the 5th Precinct? Raise your hand or let me know in the chat, but I don't believe they are, no.
Okay, so I think that we may go back to that at a later date. But in the meantime, I know that let's talk to Brian. Hi, we see you. How are
Hi,
you?
how's it going, everybody?
You were not working this evening.
No, I'm not.
Good for you. Well, thank you for joining us.
Great.
So I'm going to leave it up to you. You can just tell us what's going on, if there's anything, and then if there are any questions, people will ask.
So right now, crime is pretty much the same from when I last told you. It's for the 28-day we are up, but it's mainly due because of last year at this time nobody was reporting anything because we were in the height of the pandemic. But year to date we're still down about 17.5%, so that's a good number. The only thing we're spiking a little bit in, I believe, was not felony assault, was grand larceny autos, and it might have been felony assaults, but the numbers weren't significant to warrant like a pattern or anything like that. It was just they're just like a like 15 versus 10 kind of thing. Nothing too crazy. As far as the precinct goes, we're going to be having our community council meeting next Thursday, the 27th. It'll be at 6 p.m. via Zoom. I'm going to send out an email tomorrow with the log-on information. None of the NCOs are having their Build-A-Blocks this month. Everything's done for this month. So if there's one next month in Adam, Boy, or Charlie, I'll let you know. And I'll also send you that log-on information. Captain Smith is going to be hosting a meeting down by Peck Slip, the Peck Slip School, on Tuesday at 1 o'clock. He encourages the public to come out and discuss issues that you may have. We're hoping, some of the parents will be out picking up their kids in the neighborhood. And we had 2 successful ones earlier this month, and he's hoping to have a repeat of that where we just come out, talk with the community. We're going to have some different cops from the precinct with different positions come out and, just kind of, get to know the community, let them know what we do, how we can help, see if there's any issues we can, try to partner up on, and kind of like what we did at the hospital the other day with Pat and Justine.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Lucian, is that something we can put in our newsletter?
Always happy to put in information in. Yep.
Okay, I'll send you. We have a flyer. I'll send you the flyer.
Perfect. Thanks, Brian.
No problem. And as far as we really haven't had any issues in the precinct that have been popping off. Luckily, the knock on wood, the hate crimes and stuff has kind of dwindled down in our command, at least. We haven't really been seeing much of that. We're getting the normal 311 complaints for noise complaints and some of the the bars and restaurants. That's normal. But nothing's really jumping off the page as being dire like we were having with the hotels and when the hate crimes was at its peak. So God, knock on wood, it's been kind of a a quiet time in regards to that. So if anybody has questions, I'm more than happy to try to help out.
Did you mention National Night Out?
Yes, National Night Out. So that's going to be the first Tuesday in August. It's either I believe it's August 3rd. We haven't got an official location yet, but most likely it's going to be at Howard Hughes down by the seaport. We'll definitely be sending out information on that as it comes in. They just sent out an email this week, and Pat, I know you couldn't open the attachment. I'm going to send you that. I was at training today, so I didn't have access to be able to send the new attachment.
That's fine.
I'll send that.
We have some time. We have some time. I also wanted to talk to you because I had something I wanted to contribute to National Night Out. So great. Thank you. All right, so let's open the floor up to questions. I can't see hands. Unmute yourself and ask your question if you have one.
Hello, it's Diane Lapson again.
Hi, Diane.
Hi. Thanks for still being there after a year of a horrible pandemic. So I spent the whole pandemic just locked in my house because I have underlying conditions, and spent more time in my apartment than I have forever. And I live in Independence Plaza right over the West Side Highway. And from the beginning of the pandemic, suddenly, when there was no traffic, we had suddenly cars racing down at all hours of night, like speed racing. And I and some tenants had reported this, because what concerned me is that, especially with the traffic lights, like you need to wait 2 traffic lights to cross West Side Highway from the street. And whoever's driving like this, I mean, it's so loud that everybody in the neighborhood could hear it. When the officers went, they asked me when it was happening, but it happens 24 hours a day. You don't know. I was wondering if maybe the problem of getting some action on this was because the highway is not really governed by New York City police. Maybe it's a state issue, and maybe I should be talking to somebody else.
It's not a state issue, and I know the West Side Highway, even down there, it's not even guarded by highway because technically it's a street still at that point. It doesn't become the highway until above 59th Street. So it's us. It's the first precinct's jurisdiction. Any agency can have, issue a ticket if they see a violation in their presence. But it is our jurisdiction. We do handle it. I remember when the pandemic was coming into the summer months last year, we were having, I was speaking to some of the residents about the street racing. It's just, unfortunately, it's one of those things that we're aware of, and you try to catch it, but you can't always be in the right place at the right time.
No, but there are cameras. I thought there were
Right.
cameras.
It seems that though that the cameras aren't, either it's not an issue or they're doing something to circumvent the summons, such as plate coverings or maybe even taking their plates off or obstructing them somehow. Because we were hoping that was, because there's 2 or 3 cameras that are on the intersection that go all the way down the Battery, but we're still getting complaints of it. So it's really, Captain Smith, since he's been here, he's been trying to implement, when we see these temp tags and when we see these obstructed plates, to kind of, try to get some more information out of why that is. If there's other infractions, try to make the car stop and issue a citation for that, because it is illegal to have your plate obstructed or, completely missing. So we are trying to do that with our traffic team. I know it's no comfort when they're racing at 2:00 in the morning. So the only thing I can keep saying is keep making those 911 calls and keep making those 311 calls, because the more 311 calls we have, the more we can get resources to help that situation. So if there's only 1 or 2, it looks like it's not a big issue. If we have an influx of calls, we have every week we come out with a list of the most frequent 311 locations, and that gets sent out to all our sectors and all our NCOs. And then if it really has a lot, then it'll be noticed by 1PP and our borough. And I'm not saying that we want to bring other agencies or other offices into our own business, but sometimes you do need that to happen in order for them to send resources for us to deal with the problem.
So
we only have 3 or 4 cars out, and if they're tied up on other things, they're not going to be able to monitor.
Okay, so it's not something that I need to bring up at next Thursday's meeting. It's just something that people have to start.
I'll mention it to the captain that we talked about it tonight, because I'll have a list of the things that we speak on. But by all means, if you're going to sign on and that's something you want to bring up, by all means, he encourages it. He loves to hear from the community, and he'll give you a direct answer that may not be exactly what I said. He may have a better solution for it. So if it's something that you feel that you want to bring up, by all means, we don't care if you double up on it.
Yeah, it's a safety issue. It's not just because I'm being disturbed in my sleep. I mean, my fear is that if crossing the street in a wheelchair or with a baby carriage, where you can't rush and suddenly a car is speeding at, this is like rocket ship level.
But also, Diane, if you bring it up again next Thursday, people who don't necessarily live in IPN but live close by and don't know what to do will now hear and know who to reach out to. And
all right, so then I will log on and I will bring it up.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks a
We
lot.
love having you back here, Diane.
It's like a dream.
You mean a nightmare or a dream?
Oh no, I'm not sure.
Anybody else? Any questions?
Yeah, Pat. Hi, it's Elizabeth Lewinson.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi. So recently, I was contacted by a couple of residents in the neighborhood. They actually live on Chambers and Broadway, right kind of by the community board building. And they were complaining about a kidnapping or several kidnappings that were occurring. I don't know if you've heard of this. Some teenagers, sorry, not kidnapping, mugging. I don't know why I just said kidnapping. Sorry, that was a slip of the tongue. But some muggings that were occurring to several teenagers in the neighborhood on Broadway around Chambers Street. And I don't know if you heard of that. They were very concerned about that. They all have kids, families. And then, one other thing that came up, and I'm sure this has been discussed before in quality of life, I'm not bringing it up for the first time. And again, I'm just the messenger here, but they were complaining about the homeless situation. And they were saying how for them, again, I have not experienced this and I live on Park Place right off of Broadway, but for them, they find the homeless situation very menacing, at least where they live, on Chambers and Broadway. And they were wondering what is being done about that or what could be done about that. So I told them I would try to get back to them with some answers. So I'm just, I wanted to sort of put that out to you and ask you how should I respond to them about the mugging as well as the homeless situation?
Yes, so we were aware of we took a report for the mugging situation. It was two teenagers, I believe they were 13 and 15. It was in the middle of the afternoon. It was about 2:30 in the afternoon when it happened. Thank God the kids weren't hurt. They did the right thing. They handed over their property and didn't try to get confrontational. So in that aspect, thank God nobody was injured. Unfortunately, we are seeing these kinds of things more and more, and we are seeing it be with either homeless community or people that might be emotionally disturbed. So we're still dealing with the homeless. I know that there's a lot of information out there that the NYPD is hands off with the homeless. It's just unfortunately it's different now how we handle it. We are getting the other agencies involved. We're getting the Department of Health involved. We're getting Department of Homeless Services involved. It's not just us going and basically telling them to move. We really don't have the right to do that anymore unless they're blocking entrances, unless they're aggressively panhandling. There's not a lot that we can do to make them move. They have rights just like every other citizen has rights. The mayor's office has made it clear that, there's going to be no more locking up the homeless for minor infractions, stuff that, if we're not locking the regular public up for it, we're not locking them up for it.
Right.
If the citizens, if the residents are feeling that way, unfortunately, the only thing we can tell them is that, we are aware of it. We are making referrals. We are going to, if they have to call 911, obviously, we are responding to the jobs. We're dealing with it. It might not be the way that they want us to deal with it. If they don't like the procedures, they're going to have to get in touch with their elected officials, and either, laws are going to have to be rewritten again, or they're going to have to, make their voices heard at the voting booths when the time comes, because, right now, the procedures are written by the city council, the procedures are written by the mayor's office, and we have to comply, with guidelines. So we're trying to do the best we can within those guidelines. Because if we don't, then we open ourselves up to, possible lawsuits, possible, discipline. So it's a very gray area right now.
Right.
But in an emergency,
Yeah.
911, cops will respond. They will handle the situation. Nobody's ever gonna, not respond and not, take charge of the situation. But the minor stuff, it's more about making referrals, asking the people that are, that are homeless or, that might be medically, disabled or, emotionally disturbed. If they are emotionally disturbed, we can remove them from the street and send them to the hospital. If they're not, if we don't deem them emotionally disturbed, we can ask them if they want services, if they want to go to a shelter, if they want to go to a food bank, if they, if they need any medical attention other than, psychiatric attention, something like that. But if they tell us no, there's really, our hands are kind of tied. So,
But who makes that determination of who's mentally disturbed or not? I mean, is it a
So
police officer or is it social services? I mean, who gets involved there?
each case is individual. So if I get a call and it's a homeless individual and I can determine that he's acting in an erratic behavior, I can make the determination that he needs immediate medical, treatment. So I'll call a supervisor there and we'll detain that person until the supervisor comes. Not detain, with handcuffs or anything, but we'll make sure that, that person doesn't walk off, that person doesn't harm anybody or themselves in between. And we'll determine whether or not an ambulance needs to be called. In situations where we're not sure 100%, and they're not hurting themselves or others, we will make a referral to either the Department of Health, who will send out a medical, professional to the scene, not right away. We'll try to get a picture of the person so we have a reference to go on. We'll try to get a name from them. But if they don't want to comply, there's nothing that we can do in those situations.
Right, of course. And are you finding though that a lot of homeless people are not going to shelters right now because of the pandemic? Because the pandemic is still, still around, and so that is, the pandemic is a deterrent to what otherwise would be. I mean, eh, is that something that's still an issue or not?
I mean, the pandemic is still an issue. There's still some of the stigmas that come with the shelters. A lot of them have had incidents happen in the shelters. They don't feel necessarily safe inside them. Is some of the feedback. Also, believe it or not, and it's going to sound cruel, they do very well in Tribeca, in the financial district. They set up on a corner. People do, donate, make donations to them. They donate clothes, they donate food, they donate money to them. They do well for themselves, some of them, and they don't want to not be there for that aspect of it. So it's unfortunately, there's no right or wrong way to handle that situation. It's just these are just the facts as we're seeing them, and as just from having conversations with them, asking them why, that those are some of the reasons we're getting.
Interesting. Okay. I don't think the general concern is that, I think it's homeless people who are I guess menacing to the community. I think they were not raising issues with homeless people in general, just homeless people that seemed to potentially be violent or to seem to be intimidating or seem to be menacing residents, particularly at night. So I think that was their major concern. And so the issue is, so just tell them that if they do feel that way,
911.
call 911. Okay.
911, absolutely. Somebody's acting. You don't even have to say homeless. They could just say
someone's acting irrationally or
being threatened. Yes, by a
threatening.
person.
Threatening. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. So if they feel that someone is acting threatening, 911, the police will come out and be of assistance. Okay. All right.
Definitely tell them not to confront them themselves.
Right. Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Yes, Officer Nelson, I have a question too.
Yes.
I was reading, it was in the Tribeca Tribune that came out today, in fact, and it did mention, in fact, those other two boys on Chambers Street were 12 and 14, and they had approached with a knife, evidently, which kind of leads into the one I want to ask about, which was on May 7th, so not yesterday. There were two holdups at gunpoint of, again, teenagers, one in Battery Park City, one of them on Chambers Street, and one of them close by on North End Avenue, but very close to where I live. I was kind of wondering what happened with that, and is this a growing problem for the teen kind of age group as targets?
Specifics of that case, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not at work, so I can't look up the complaint report to see exactly which one it is. As far as teenagers being a target, it's nothing that like there's a pattern with right now. It could just be two isolated incidents that just happen to involve teens, but just being a police officer so many years and in the age that we live in, teens tend to not have their guard up, and teens tend to have their heads buried in their cell phones and their electronic equipment. So they could be an easy target to somebody who's, kind of scoping out the area, so to speak. So it could be two isolated incidents. It could be that, we need to get the word out there, to teenagers better. But there's nothing pattern wise to suggest that. So without having the complaint report in front of me, there's really, I can't give you specifics, but I would just, say that it's probably just a contributing factor is the fact that it's anybody that's probably not paying attention, and teenagers tend to do that more.
And Brian, could you possibly find out about those two incidents that Betty was asking about and get back to Lucian with that info?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I wanted to just add something to that. Is it possible this is gang-related violence?
We don't have anything specific with gangs that are down here. It's not to say that we don't have gang members that come into the area and commit crimes, but as far as gang activity, we don't have anything specific that we've been made aware of from our intel unit that encompasses the gang unit.
Okay, because what I had read about the two gunpoint robberies of teens in Battery Park City is one of the group was 3 girls, ages like 16 and 17. And is that, it struck me as perhaps an unusual target. And then they targeted, I think, a group of teen boys.
Yeah, like I said, there was nothing that pointed to us or that I'm aware of. I don't have access to the detective's files as far as interviews and stuff like that after the fact, but nothing on scene or was made aware to regular police officers at the precinct to be aware of this, because this was something that they were maybe considering was an issue. So as they could be gang members, they could be part of a gang that came in, but whether or not it's something that was the sole reason, I couldn't speak on that.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate that you'll get back to us and let us know, because I do believe they apprehended some of those folks.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions? Anything from the public, Lucian, that I can't see?
I think Diane has her hand back up. I'm going to unmute her. Diane?
I just forgot to take my hands off. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Okay, I got you. Okay, I think that's all. Brian, could you just remind me of the date of the next Build-A-Block again?
Yes, so I believe the next Build-A-Block is going to be on June 14th. I'm not sure which sector it's for.
Okay.
I'll have to get back to you on that, but I know there's one on June 14th, but I'm not sure if it's the Soho one or if it's one that's in community
Got
board.
it. And the next, the community council date?
It's 27th of, it's a week from today. That's
Week from today, everybody. So
And-
please attend our community council meeting a week from today.
And
I'm going to put
please-
the info in the chat.
Yeah, and if you live in a building where you're in contact with your neighbors, would you please let them know and ask them or try to get them to come? We're trying to build, more community interaction, and this is a good way if people attend that meeting. So, Brian, as always, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to come. We appreciate it. We know you're doing a great job out there. Just stay safe.
Thank you, Pat. I appreciate it, guys. And my pleasure. And, if you ever need to contact me individually, I'm always there for you, and I'll always get back to you with whatever you need. And Lucian, I'll get you those statistics tomorrow and see if we can figure out what the deal is with those 2 complaint reports.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. And Brian, would you send me the Zoom info one more time for the community council meeting, and I'll drop it in the chat here.
Yes.
Yeah, thank
And
you
then
so
we'll
much.
see you next Thursday.
Okay, see you, Pat.
Bye.
Thanks. Make sure. And
Thank you.
Pat, Rodney Rosado said that he apologized for not being able to make it. His unit was called up for
Yeah,
some
understandable.
unrest, so he was called away.
Yeah, unfortunately, Rodney, I know they're in Midtown right now for the Israeli-Palestinian.
Yeah, stuff happens,
large
you know.
down.
I hope they stay
Yeah.
safe. So we'll speak to them another time. Great. Thank you.
Take care.
Night. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the last topic, which is this property tax reform, this commission. And between Lucian and Zeta, they're going to explain it to us.
Okay, so I'm not going to start from the beginning of property tax reform, but I will say that it's a real hot potato, and a lot of people have said that they were going to do something about the inequities of the New York City property tax system. There is a current effort as embodied by the New York City Advisory Commission on Property Tax Reform, and they have recently released a report that makes preliminary recommendations. Now, the report, as you see on the screen, I'll actually stop where I'm doing now, and I'm going to put a link to the report in the chat. So if anyone wants to follow along, they can do
There are
so.
10
And
recommendations.
here's the report link in the chat. So the report is some pretty thick reading, and for good reason. They do a lot of explaining. There's a lot of they're threading the needle in a lot of ways to help people understand. but I'm going to cut to the chase and I'm going to get to the very end. But before I read out the recommendations, I'm going to talk about why it's important to Community District 1. Community District 1 not only has property owners, many of whom are co-op owners or condo owners. We have renters who are subjected to property taxes indirectly as bundled in with the rent of the other kind of building costs that they pay. Apartment owners, whether it's co-op or condo, tend to have a more recognizable relationship since they see the cost broken out. Many of them pay it separately if it's not abated. But the special situation is in Battery Park City, where there are a number of other costs that people have to pay. So in addition to the pilot, which is the payment in lieu of taxes, which is a payment that is pegged to property taxes, people also have to pay ground rent, and that creates a lot of cost and other complexities. So it's important, since property tax is such a large portion of what people pay for housing costs, that we take care to analyze ways to make property tax more fair, and not simply fair in terms of income, but also fair in terms of housing type. As you'll see as we go through the recommendations, that different types of housing or classes of buildings are taxed differently, and the taxes escalate in different ways, and the valuations of which the taxes are based on are calculated in different ways. So it's certainly something that if you haven't read any of this report or looked into how property taxes are set, you're going to kind of be blasted with a lot of different terms and concepts right now. But luckily we have Detta All with us today, who is a Department of Finance extraordinaire, and she's agreed to help guide us through some of these concepts if there's any questions. So Pat, you tell me if you want just to give Detta a couple of seconds to kind of set the stage a little bit, and then I can just read through these.
To volunteer her time to help us, please, Detta, take it away.
Yeah, I'm here. It is a 72-page report. I did read most of it, and I'm just here, for questions. And if at some point you want me to present a summary, I can. But Lucian seems to be well underway right now.
Thanks, Detta. And I want people to be careful because, as Detta is a Department of Finance employee, I don't want to put pressure on her to kind of give her opinion on this. But she can certainly give us a lot of background and facts and help demystify some concepts.
I can't see if you can see me waving my hand, but I was, I'm going to say the word blessed because I'm so multitasking right now. That's probably not the right word, but Detta explained this to me and she did a really great job. So I would actually ask Detta, without putting you any, ask you to put any of your opinions in there or go any place you can't go, but doing a basic explanation of what the situation is now and what they're looking to change as relates to co-ops and condos and class 1 and class 2 homes. I think that would be so helpful to everybody. And you really do it fast. I mean, it's like 10 minutes and you do it. So that's my vote. If you're willing.
I'm happy with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, in this particular proposal, they're not proposing any changes for any building 11 units and larger. So that's class 2, either rentals, co-ops, or condos. They're not proposing changes. They are proposing changes for class 1 buildings, which are 1 to 3 family houses. There are also class 1 buildings, which are 3 stories and less, even if they're more than 3 units. And then there are class 2A, 2B, and 2C, and that is co-ops, condos, and rentals that are in a 4 to 10 unit building. So those are, so it's these buildings, basically any building like 1 to 10 units that they're proposing changes. Right now, those are the buildings that have caps on the amount that the assessed value can go up each year.
They do
So-
have caps or they don't?
Yes,
Small
those
ones?
do. Class 1 buildings right now have a cap on them of the assessed value can only go up a maximum of 20% over every 5 years. Class 2A, 2B, and 2C, that's 4 to 10 unit buildings, have a cap on them right now where the assessed value can only go up 30% over 5 years. So
And in the large buildings, there's no cap. Is that a true
there's
sentence?
no cap on it on buildings, rentals, co-ops, or condos, 11 units and more.
So another question, and I know I'm jumping you, Detta, if I can. When the commission report, the consensus report number 2 says the commission recommends using a sales-based methodology to value all properties in the residential class. That means the smaller under 10 unit buildings as well as single family homes. Does not mean large condos or co-ops.
Right,
11.
because
Okay.
they're proposing to combine 1 to 3 family homes and these smaller 4 to 10 unit buildings and put them into a new residential class. Instead of them being, right now, they're separate classes. So they want to put that into a new residential class. And right now, 1 to 3 family homes are, the sales-based approach is what determines the market value. But with 4 to 10 unit buildings, right now it's the income-based approach. So they would instead, for those buildings, start using a sales-based approach.
And then when you look at, and it goes into ridiculously intricate detail in this report, when it's on a sales-based approach, they give you, you sell your house for $100,000 and the tax rate is whatever it is. 2%.
They reach
whatever.
the estimated market value based on comparable sales,
which-
instead of based on what would this building bring in if it were
In rental
income
value.
producing. Right.
Correct. And then, but the tax assessed on that valuation for the, I'm going to call them class 1 homes, okay, just make it simple, versus class 2 is big, class 1 is small, okay? The class 1 homes, it's a small percentage. With the class 2 homes, the assessed value is based on what the rental income would be based on comparable rental buildings, even though these are not rental buildings, but they come up with a number and then they tax 45% of that number. Correct?
Sort of.
Or maybe I looked out a step. I think I
Class
looked out a
one,
step.
class 1 as it stands right now, they get the estimated market value based on comparable sales. They take 6% of that as the assessed value. The class 2A, 2B, 2C right now, they use an income-based approach to get an estimated market value. And then they take 45% of that as the assessed value. And then the class 1 then on that assessed value has about a 21% tax, and on the class 2A, 2B, 2C, you have about a 12% tax on that 45%. So I don't know in the new report if they're stating, I mean, from what I read, and I think I'm wrong, they were going to take 100% of the estimated market value as the assessed value. So I think I read that wrong. I'll have to reread that part. But as it exists, that's what they're proposing to change. They're going to make something uniform for all of these buildings that are 10 units and less. And yeah.
And there are buildings that fit that bill within Community Board 1. So it is something to pay attention to. And we certainly, in this committee, I would think, need to opine on that. However, there's also a large number of large, more than 11 unit condominium or co-op buildings in Community Board 1, where there's no change. And with the unlimited cap, it is pricing people out of their homes.
Right.
So
I mean,
this
they're not
report,
proposing to.
yeah, they're doing
they're
nothing
not,
to help those people at all.
No, they are not. This is all about
the small
the units that have the cap on them right now and changing that.
Correct.
Let me interrupt you too for a second.
Yeah,
'cause
and I'm going to shut up. I just wanted
I got to
to
tell you, my brain is reeling. So I kind of want to get to understand what it is that we want to accomplish. And maybe Lucian can step in for that. We want to take the proposed
Well, wait, actually, may I
recommendation.
step in and tell you? Because I don't think Detta can say what she wants, she can't give an opinion. I think that's.
No, I'm not asking Detta. I'm
Okay.
asking Lucian what it is that as a committee, what do we want to accomplish?
Well, okay, I know what well, go ahead, Lucian.
Well,
Then
officially, what we need to do is opine on these recommendations, these preliminary recommendations this month, so that the board can have an official response to the commission and submit that while the window is open for responses. So that's what we're doing. Well, just after the month of May. So we don't have another shot at doing this next month. So however, I mean, if you all and Justine have a direction you want to go or a strategy, I mean, I'm agnostic to where you go on this, but you will have to do your best to comment on these recommendations, and the recommendations themselves need to be altered. That's one thing. If you have new recommendations, they may consider them, but it'll probably less so than what's there. They'll probably want to kind of adjust what they have, but you're welcome to kind of take this any way you want.
Okay, so I think the first thing we should do, and
I
Detta,
just-
can
yeah,
you still say?
I just wanted to finish one other thing. So this would mean an increase for those buildings, all these
The
10
small
units.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah, for the 1 to 3 family homes and the 4 to 10 unit buildings. And they're proposing to phase that increase in 20% at a time over 5 years, or to phase it in all at once upon any sale of one of those units. Just to let you know more parts of that, more parts
And
of
with
the proposal.
what's happening to the single family homes themselves? Are they also getting
Yeah.
the little white picket fence? Same thing for them. They're going to get phased in. They're already under this
Well,
rubric.
there are carve outs for low income in this report.
I know. I guess my frustration with it all is that a lot of the people who own property are not low income. They're moderate and middle income, as well as whatever the next step is between, 1%.
Okay, I think we need to look at the 10
Yeah,
proposals.
I think we do.
And then have a conversation based on that, because right now we're talking about, for
Right.
most of us, we don't understand what we're talking about. So,
So Lucian, pull it up, right?
So those 10 proposals, yeah, they're on page 11 of this 72-page document.
Yeah, they're in green. They show up in green if you're looking at it.
now, I don't see it on our screen.
No, I don't see it on the
But the
screen
thing
yet.
is, they don't specify, like they say that the property tax would be lower for low-income primary resident owners.
But they don't identify what that is.
They don't say what low income they're going to use.
Well,
and they're also proposing for these smaller units, like for these co-ops in a 4 to 10 unit building, to get rid of the co-op and condo tax abatement and replace it with a homestead exemption that you could only get if your income is below a certain amount. Because right now, people can get a co-op and condo tax abatement no matter what their income.
Correct. You just get the abatement because you're here. So we actually have, and Lucian, you sent it around, which tells us what the New York State in Manhattan, what the income levels are. I am trying desperately to find it, but it's a link that I know I have someplace, and I'll share it if I can find it.
Okay, while you're looking.
I found it. Area median income. Okay, I'm gonna put it in the chat, and then Lucian can share it.
while you're doing that, can we,
I can't put it in the
report
chat.
to everyone?
Um, Lucian,
I
I'm
guess,
gonna email it to you to put it in the chat. Sorry.
Okay.
so should we just go through these one by one and kind of at least try to understand this?
Yeah.
So the commission recommends moving co-ops, condominiums, and rental buildings with up to 10 units into a new residential class along with 1 to 3 family homes. The property tax system would continue to consist of 4 classes of property resident. So Jed, is that what you're talking about? Class 1, Class 2A, Class 2B, and 2C?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Yeah, they're not separating out class 1A, 1B, 1C, although that exists, but they're keeping that all in class 1. But yeah, they're taking out class 2A, 2B, 2C. That's
so
the
why would it continue to consist of 4 classes of property?
Oh,
Like
you have
residential-
Yeah,
Okay.
because if you look
4
at it,
is,
go ahead, Detta.
oh, I was gonna say, I think 4 is industrial and 3
Yeah.
and 4 are 1 is industrial and 1 is commercial, something like that. 1 and 2 are the only residential.
Correct.
So this is like a streamlining of the system.
What does that mean, the streamlining of the system?
Well, I mean, they're collapsing like the 2A, B, and C into 1.
Yes.
So that it's like a simpler system.
makes
so
it
like
easy.
smaller residential buildings are all kind of treated the same way.
Yeah,
Instead
anything
of-
that's 10 units or less is all class 1. Anything that's 11 units or more residential, I'm talking, is class 2.
But what's his utilities? What does that mean?
Con Ed, I don't know. What's utilities?
Would consist of 4 classes of property.
Yeah, but
Residential, large rentals, utilities, and commercial. We understand everything, but I don't understand utilities. What is a utility property? Data?
Detta, do you know?
Yeah, I think there's only like 293 in the city, and I think
Yeah.
it is exactly, it's your
It's
Con
Con
Ed.
Ed. That's what I think.
Oh, so it's like on VC Street, not VC, West Broadway and.
Yeah,
there's
because Con Ed is technically private. They're just a state-granted monopoly to a private company to provide that service.
Okay. So the commission recommends using a sales-based methodology to value all properties in the residential class. Okay.
Which is
the
meaning
new
class
residential
1 only.
class.
Is that what you're, but is that what you understand to be the case? That is not clear. So that, number 1 comment, that needs to be clear. Residential encompasses class 1 and class 2.
But I think they're referring to only this new residential class that they're gonna create, but I agree, it's not clear.
It's not clear, so I think in our resolution, we need to have the clarification.
Wait, for
Whether
number
I agree
3,
or not, I want
Okay,
clarification.
hold on, everybody.
I can. At the end, they really crack into it. So I'll apologize. I got confused. I had it all pulled up on the website when I got the link, and I was scrolling all through it, and I thought you all were seeing it, and I realized that I'm sharing the PDF viewer and not my browser.
Green
So,
view, okay, yeah.
I have to
you
step away
you
for
guys
one
didn't
quick-
get to see anything. So let me find the section that you guys are talking about. So it's 3. So here. So I think Detta, you're right. The 100%. Because they said they're
They
removing
did.
fractional
Yep.
fractional assessments.
They
So
wanted to make
it's
it
going
simple.
to be assessed value times the tax rate.
Yep. And I think, to be fair, they're lowering the tax rate.
And Detta, this kind of goes to a question that I had for you. Just overall, right? The tax rates. I mean, overall, there's a tax levy, right? The city kind of decides how much money they're going to take from property taxes, and based on all the different properties they have, that's
how they
kind
form
of
the tax
how they
rate.
form the tax rates. Is that right? Am I?
Yeah, the city council votes every year on the tax rate, and they set the rate, for the utilities, for the commercial, for the class 1, for the class 2. And then it's the city assessors every year that determine the assessed value. So then that's how you get the total tax, the assessed value times the rate.
So if everything is, I mean, if they're, the city is essentially or potentially unlocking a lot of value here by taking properties whose actual real values have escalated incredibly quickly over the last 20 years, but their assessed values have been statutorily depressed via these caps. allow those to kind of snap back into place, especially as they're sold, and they'll be contributing a lot more money to the tax, levy, overall tax levy, in the next 5-year period, which may reduce the need for a higher tax rate overall. Would that
Assuming the
be
properties actually sell.
right? But over time, over like a 5-year period or whatever period that they actually use to bring them back up to the new real fair rate, that they'll be contributing more to the overall proceeds from the taxes, and thus the city council won't have to set the tax rate as high to hit the amount of
Like-
revenue that's projected.
Like if you go to page 52, you see that like those 1 to 3 family homes right now are basically 48% of the value in the city, but they're only paying 15% of the property taxes.
But
So
what-
this would increase the percentage of the property taxes that they pay. This change.
I'm not sure I understand if that's fair. I'm not sure I understand that.
I'm just
Making
not
a
your
comment.
opinion.
pointing
Basically,
out
it's
to the
not.
report, right?
What they're looking to do, Pat, is, so step one, and I'm jumping you down to the last, I think, point, which says everything has to be revenue neutral. So if they're collecting $100, they're going to have to collect $100. And the problem, as far as I'm concerned, is the first flaw in this plan is it can't be revenue neutral. If it is unfair and too much tax on the large commercial buildings to then transfer the burden onto the smaller buildings makes no sense. So all you're doing is making it unaffordable for everybody to own property in
Let's
New York
let some
City.
other
Okay.
committee
Okay, so
members
that's fine.
jump in. Who else is having a difficult time understanding?
It's really, it's long, but it's everything that we're saying is in there. You just have to read the whole thing.
Yeah, but we have to make some comments on this, or recommendations about it, or not, I guess. Anybody
We
from the
should.
committee
Did anybody
wanna-
else besides me read it? And Detta?
I mean, I tried to. I sloshed
Yeah.
through some of it.
It's very dense.
Well, it
No
looks like
question about
Betty
it.
definitely has her hand up. So
Good. Betty should talk.
Betty, we
Yeah.
can't see you. Yeah, Miss
Yeah,
Betty.
I'm a
please.
numbers person.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll be honest, I've been talking to Deb about this report. So I do have a heads up that it's a little
And
bit
something-
unfair, but I had been reading what Lucian had sent in advance as well. The reality is, and what Detta had been trying to point out is, although these, excuse me, these class one, these properties they're talking about now versus everything else, they pay disproportionately less tax for their valuations than the other classes do, such as those of us who live in bigger, denser buildings. We pay disproportionate amounts individually by unit, not just by building. By unit, we pay more for our property than they do, even though they own the ground and take up a bigger footprint for the city. So given, and I think part of this was driving, if you've seen the zoning of Soho and NoHo, I know they talk about trying to diversify those communities and bring people closer to the big assets. But this is also a factor of they're going to drive more density. Why? Because right now, to go more dense, there's no motivation if you have a small building, because your taxes are so cheap compared to your valuation. They are so cheap that why would you go try to buy the same value in a tall building where your taxes are going to double and triple on you?
Okay, makes sense.
So
Right.
if they want to equalize and say, you know what, if you own this value of property, it's a $1 million place, house, condo, whatever it is, how dense it is, doesn't really matter. You're going to pay taxes that are a little bit more on parity. They aren't going to exceed those of us in dense populations. They're probably still going to be lower in the percent they actually generate for the city in terms of tax revenues. So in that sense, and they have a cap. So they have a certain safety valve that we don't have if you're in a class 2 building, which many of us are in our district. which is over 11 and more units in the building.
Mhm.
So
I
they do
guess-
have some built in.
They do. They have some built in. I guess what I'm saying is the whole thing is not fair. And what they're proposing as a change doesn't even affect us in any way it's beneficial, correct?
I don't know if I would say
Us
that.
meaning larger buildings, I should say. I should be
Jill,
clear.
Jill here. I'm just wondering if someone, maybe Detta, can give us like the less than 1 minute opposing position. What is the other side saying about why this is fair?
You mean unfair?
No,
I'm
no,
good for
no,
it.
no, wait.
No, because I'm saying it's unfair. Now Jill is saying, somebody speak up and say why this makes sense.
Yes,
Right?
why it's fair.
Yeah,
I
why
would
they
say
wanna
why
make
I
the
think it's
changes?
fair. Because it'll bring them closer to parity, that if they have a certain valuation in their property, they're gonna get closer to paying the same taxes.
No.
Somebody,
That's what this is saying. I'm saying, I want to hear the anti-argument.
Why wouldn't they?
Anti what?
well, that's Justine.
That's
Who'd
me.
wanna
I'm the
pay it?
anti. I'm
No,
saying why.
no, let me
Yeah,
be
yeah.
clear. Why does the city do this? Is it a benefit to the single homeowner? I want
No.
to hear, no, I
No,
don't want
it's
to
not.
hear your opinion.
No,
I
as a
want
numbers
somebody
thing,
that-
it is,
Right.
okay, but
I
somebody
want
else can
somebody
answer
to
that
tell
question.
me the argument that's the opposite of this one.
Jill, I'm not sure I understand that.
I think Jill wants to hear right now people are speaking in favor of like, well, it's fair because
No, our
single
committee.
family.
No, it's
wait,
not.
wait, hold on, wait, I
Jill
haven't
wants the
finished yet.
opposite of what I'm saying,
All right, let
right?
Lucian talk.
So right now, what's been presented is the class 1 buildings and then also class 2 A, B, and C have these caps, and so ultimately they're not paying the same amount of their actual market valuation in taxes when compared to multifamily buildings. What I think Jill is asking is, well, why shouldn't it stay the same? What's the argument for keeping things as it is? Is there an argument for not
Ollie!
changing it, right? Is that what you're saying, Jill?
Ollie, yes, I'm sorry. Ollie, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Somebody was using the Vitamix, apologies. Yes, yeah, I want to hear the other side's argument.
Why keep it the same? Interesting. Okay. Because I'm not saying that either.
Yeah, I just want to know what the counter argument is. Because
What are the benefits of the system as it is today without changing it? What would we lose if we follow these recommendations?
And
Nothing,
what is the
because it's
thought?
revenue
Wait,
neutral.
Justine, just 1 second. And what is the thought? What is the reasoning behind not changing them? Why do these exist this way to begin with?
Does anybody answer that? Daddy, you can answer that. I know you can because you've explained it
I
to
have
me.
a political answer to that.
I mean, I think in a certain political climate, caps were something that some politician got in place on some, these smaller buildings, but not on the larger ones. But I'm happy to have Lucian answer.
So in the as I was it's been explained to me that one of the strongest sources of political power in the city of New York are the Queens civic groups, which are civic associations in single-family neighborhoods in Queens, as well as other kind of machine power politics coming out of single-family neighborhoods in Brooklyn. And together, they control a lot of who becomes the speaker of the city council, which, as a compromise, always ends up being a Manhattan council member. And I think that the nature of that political power coming from single-family neighborhoods has, over a long period of time, as Detta or someone said, has the political outcome has been, protectionist caps on the increases of the tax rate and valuation on these types of homes, in order to shift the burden of the tax levy away from single-family homes.
So
And
But,
Yeah.
but wait, can I ask a question though?
wait, let me just finish. So our argument is that home ownership is home ownership. And whether you own a condo or a single family home, the goal is home ownership. There is really no difference. Does that sum it up?
Yes, but that's not what this is saying. Has changed. I don't, they're putting some burden onto the single family homes by this proposition here. But I don't see any relief to the large condos or co-ops. And that's my question. Am I missing something, Detta? I see no relief.
I mean, my guess is that politicians probably would have liked to put a cap on the larger buildings, but they needed money, so they instead put the cap on the smaller ones, which had some political power. And
But what is this saying? There's still no cap and there's still no benefit. There's punishment.
But like Lucian said, if you are bringing in more money from these basically undertaxed property, that might relieve the need to keep raising taxes on the ones who are already at a higher tax rate. I'm not saying that would happen, but I'm saying that in theory that could happen.
In theory,
Right.
it could, but there is nothing in this law or proposition, or whatever you want to call it, that guarantees that would happen.
Well, I think that what's not said is the whole idea behind the tax levy. All things held, all other things held equal. If we're looking at this, the pie here, we're essentially looking to, here's the value total and the tax levy billed total. They're looking to make the gray wedge more in parity with the blue wedge. So the amount that's billed from the gray wedge resembles more of the value wedge here. And if the city says between tax year 2023 and 2024 that they are looking for the same amount of revenue, the difference between how much ends up coming from these different color wedges is vastly different based on what how they're effectively billed according to their assessments. So if you have to take $100 out of this circle and $100 out of this circle, this being the fair circle here on the left and this being the current circle on the right, let's say for argument's sake, that the multifamily buildings are going to bear much more of the $100 that the city wants to make from taxes here. But here on the left, the multifamily buildings actually are billed far less because they make up ultimately a smaller amount of the total value. So if the tax rate could be lower because the valuations are actually correct, then you could still make the same amount of money. So ultimately, the multifamily property owners are billed less for the city to make the same amount of money because it's a zero-sum game.
Let me interrupt for a second. So let me see if I understand this. So right now the proposal is that the single family or the smaller dwellings are paying less percentage-wise, and this commission is proposing that they pay more, and not that the multi-dwelling buildings pay any more. They're not going to increase.
They're not going to decrease either, though.
Right, I know that, but they're not going to increase. They're staying the same. But the other side of the coin, which are the smaller, one family and 3, 1 to 3, I think it is, they're going to pay more. So you're really not going to have the same amount of money. You're going to have more money coming into the pot. Correct?
Yes.
Well, more money could come in, but the city would say, well, we know that these buildings have changed their valuation, and so we can actually set the tax rate lower this year overall.
But why would they do that? Why in God's name would they do that?
But also, why even discuss?
Why even let them have that?
Okay, but wait, hold on a second, Justine. Let's not even discuss that because they haven't proposed that. So right now, my understanding is what they're proposing is that the smaller dwellings will pay more money. Is that as
Propose it
simple
by
as
not
that?
capping and changing anything to the larger dwellings
Yeah, I know
and
that,
increasing
but
the
I'm not trying
value.
to, I'm trying to understand this. So they're just going to, they're proposing that the smaller dwellings, right, Data, pay more money.
That's what I read, that it's only a change to buildings 10 units and less, and no change right now to buildings 11 units and more.
Okay.
You know, they have, that's part of their 10 things though is like a review period, you know, coming back and looking at it again. And so, you know, it's not to say that they wouldn't ever do other changes.
Right, but right now, what they're proposing, because I just need to understand what I'm looking at right now. And so that's what they're proposing. And so in terms of us making comments, Lucian, I'm not sure I understand. So our comments would be that we either disagree with it, or as Justina stating, that we would agree with the smaller dwellings paying more money as long as they reduce the amount of money being collected from the larger dwellings. Is that what we're discussing?
Fundamentally, as I understand it, that that when the city sets the tax rate every year, they're not looking for a windfall. They're they'll essentially get an idea of how large their budget needs to be. What other sorts of forms of income are coming from the city. Whether it's fees or how much money is coming from the federal government in the form of block grants and other sorts of monies, highway grants and the like, how much money is coming from the state, and then the tax levy is set, and the idea isn't that it varies widely, but it does.
Wait, you mean varies
increase.
widely from year to year?
Yeah, it's not supposed to be like, we make 100 billion this year and we want to make 200 billion next year.
Okay.
But because you'll just kind of kill your economy if you did that. So if you assume that the tax levy grows by a couple percentage points every year, you're going to have to pull unequally from the different slices of the pie based on how much additional income you need, because that's the share that they're generating of the entire pie. Right. So if you make the slices of how much they're supposed to contribute the same as what their value is, then you're actually going to need less from the others. If you're growing the single family slice, then you're effectively shrinking the multifamily contribution.
But they haven't said that.
Well, I think it's implied, because you're.
It's not implied. They are. Well, I mean, I guess I don't trust. But okay, I'm just going to shut up. Everybody knows what I think. You know what I think, and I'm shutting up now.
Oh, okay. But I just think we need to make comments on the 10 recommendations, and I don't know if this is the place to. I'm not sure. I'm just saying I don't know if this is the place to say, well, okay, you're getting more from this slice of the pie, so you should reduce that slice of the pie. Right now, they're just saying we're going to get more from this slice of the pie. And we need to say we agree or disagree. Am I correct, or am I completely off base? Anybody? Betty? Anybody?
I think that's somewhat true, but I think more needs to be known, and so I put up my hand. I think we have to really look at, how many buildings and where are those buildings in our district that would be affected by this? I'm going to guess they're mostly Seaport and Tribeca.
So what would be
your
recommendation?
The single family homes, you're saying what's
under 11 units.
So are we supporting or not supporting the increase on the single family?
Right.
Well, I personally strongly support it. They are paying so disproportionate on their valuation. You can see it was politically rigged to favor them.
Okay, but I think that's what Those of us who don't quite understand it, that's what we're trying to get at. So
Well, sorry,
Join
let me
this
ask,
plan.
wait a second. Let me just ask Detta to come up with these numbers again. Detta, what percent of the housing total is actually this group versus the others? Didn't they make up like 48% of the housing valuation?
Yeah, the on this page, it does show that the 1 to 3 family homes are 48% of the valuation, but paying 15% of the taxes. And you can see that,
Yeah, 15%. They're leaving 85% to the others. Although they make up almost half of the total valuation.
Right.
They're getting a good deal right now. What they're saying is bring them a little more on parity.
yeah, I mean, I see it. I see a condo that might have, might sell for $1 million and it might have 15,000 a year taxes. And then you see a house that might sell for $1 million and it might have 5,000 a year taxes.
okay, see, that's what I was trying to understand. Got it. So yes, it isn't. I mean, not that we should use the word fair, but okay. So
Yeah,
what
but
we're
that kind of difference is out there and it's pretty common, yeah, right now, because of the cap that's put in place.
so again, we don't want to be here all night about this, and it's already 8:30. I'm just trying to get to what it is that we want to accomplish, and I guess what we're trying to accomplish is to say yay or nay on the 10 recommendations. Yes? No? Anybody? Michael, are you there? Can you
I feel
help
like
us out
trying to
here?
get understanding of all of it, like trying to get a general understanding of it. I don't know. Could we talk about it some more next month? Is that an option? Because I feel like
Lucian's saying we have to kind of do it this month because they are going
Comment
to
period ends.
So you know what? I don't know how.
It's not critical that, I mean, we could just learn, I mean, this is the preliminary report. We don't have to comment, but it's good that we've had this conversation and we can keep having conversations about this. It was a good reason to have this conversation. Certainly individuals can comment as well on this report. So, I think that there's some people who have some, pretty good idea of what they would say individually, and I definitely, ask that they do so. But I think that this is a really good foray into, this, committee and the board's analysis of that, very large segment of affordability for so many people in the district.
Yeah, I just want to ask, I saw Michael was getting ready to talk, and I know that Michael, you kind of, I'm sure, have some sort of understanding of this. So can you give us your opinion or some information or some enlightenment? Oops, did we lose you? Did Michael leave?
Kettering? He's still
Yeah.
on.
You're muted. Okay.
I'm not seeing him unmute
Yeah.
though.
Okay. All right. Anybody? So as
I would say quickly, when I've thought about it, I've thought about, ways to even out the taxes, like, because you do see, why should a co-op or a condo, that would sell for $1 million pay 15 or even 20,000 in taxes, and then a house, even if it's, up in Harlem or out in Brooklyn or Queens, sell for $1 million, and then it has 4,000 to 6,000 in taxes. So it's a huge difference. I have given it myself privately some thought of how I would even it out. I've never come to any conclusions. No.
I mean, yeah, it just on the face, from what I can kind of understand, it doesn't seem, as I say, I don't like to use that word, but it doesn't seem fair. And it also doesn't seem like the city is generating as much money as it possibly could. It doesn't seem to make sense to me that the city could be getting a lot more money and they're not. Does that make sense to everybody? I see Becky. I mean,
That's the political
You're
part.
summarizing.
my brain doesn't quite work this way but that's just on the face of it. My barely understanding it. It doesn't seem like it's smart. Okay, what do we want to do? Let me have some recommendations. What do we want to do tonight? It's 8:30.
Well, some of us are in support and some aren't, right? Like,
I'm not sure we're in support though. That's only the first. That's only the first recommendation.
we could just say we
There are another 9.
recommendation, but that's all we got to. So
There's 9 we haven't even discussed. Do you want to say that we the first one? I mean, hello, there's a committee out there. I'm not hearing from anybody.
What you could, I mean, if you wanted to, is either go the route Lucian said of just leave it alone for now if people are hesitant to do anything and have individuals file comments. Or you can do one more general. It's simply we're in favor, if that's true, but we're in favor of getting more parity between different size units and the taxes they pay.
I mean, I'm in agreement with that. As I say, though, there are 9 more recommendations we haven't even looked at yet. So what?
That's why I said you could narrow it down rather than saying we endorse the whole report.
Yeah. I mean, Betty, I agree with you. So can I hear from anyone else about, do you agree with what Betty's saying? Do you want to go a different route? Boy, my committee's really quiet.
I agree with Betty. I think that's
Mitch?
Broad.
Jill, Mitch, Elizabeth, anybody? If you had to vote on it, how would you vote?
I'm just saying that some of the other recommendations are really not sort of not as important. They're, 2 of them have to do with, one has to do with the income, low income people, getting a carve out, and then one has to do with leaving current buildings more than 10 units unchanged, and one has to say, oh, let's do a review of this in 10 years. And the other says, we want to do, it's about the transition, phasing it in 20% over 5 years or when a property is sold. So I'm just saying those other ones are sort of not as heavy hitting as the earlier.
Right. Here's my other question, Detta. So if we were to do what Betty suggested, which I like, and could we come back to the other 9 at a later date and make comments on those? Could we just
There's one thing I would do. The last comment that Detta made, I forgot about. I would agree with the 5-year step in versus they change it 1 year.
So in other
I
words,
think I agree with more parity, but there should be a step up toward that parity.
Oh, the change in the change only happens when it's sold. Otherwise, it is the 5-year step up.
Okay, then that's fine.
So in other words, it would stay the same for 5 years if it hasn't sold.
No, it would change 20% each year till it reaches the higher value of taxes.
I got you. So they wouldn't levy it all at one time.
Right.
Okay. And what's the ultimate? So 20% until it reaches what? How much?
Whatever the higher rate is.
Okay. Gotcha.
Under the new calculation.
Okay, gotcha. So if the higher rate became, if it went from 5,000 to 10,000, it would be 20% of the 5,000 until it reached 10,000.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Right. So your taxes would only jump by 1,000 a year, not 5,000 all of a sudden.
Right. Okay. I saw Michael's mute go off again. Michael, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm a bit conflicted by this. I have a number of friends who own single family homes out in Queens, and that I don't know that you can just compare values. I mean, home property has a lot of expenses as well. It's hard to really evaluate this, and I'm also the idea of the increase going into effect immediately on sale, I think that's just going to hurt people who are trying to sell their property. So, you know, I'm having trouble with this, honestly. It's a complicated, you know, analysis, and I really don't know where I come out. So I'm kind of, you know, I could just say, hey, leave the system the way it is, or you know, I think it does make sense to have parity, but it's hard to evaluate. So yeah,
So would you
I'm a
vote
bit
to do nothing, say nothing? I can't hear you, Michael. You're breaking up, Michael. Oops. Michael, would you vote to do not, to say nothing?
I think that's what Betty articulating, even though I have some concerns. But yeah, I think I can do that.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Nick?
I'm on a phone tonight. I'm having trouble. I'm having some
Yeah.
technical issues.
Okay, but you said you think you support what Betty had to say, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Michael. Mitch?
Yeah, Pat, I had to step off the meeting for a couple of minutes because I got a call from a social worker. I had to deal with something with my mother. So can you just like in a couple of, just fill me in like quickly of the topic right
Okay,
now?
So did you hear the part where smaller homes pay less?
No, I had to go off. I got a call from.
So what I'm saying is smaller homes pay less percentage of tax than larger buildings that have larger amount of units. So as Dennis said, like if you have $1 million apartment, you pay, you know, $25,000 a year in taxes, and you have $1 million home and you only pay $5,000 a year in property tax, that is not fair. For lack of
Yeah, I agree with that premise.
Okay, and that if the city were to change these, if they follow these recommendations and they started to charge a more fair amount of tax on smaller units, smaller homes, you know, private homes and 1 to 3 family homes, that the city would generate more money.
Well, or lower the taxes on those smaller.
Because they're not going to lower the taxes. So let's not even have that debate. We have to talk about what they're proposing right now. We can have another debate at another time where we ask, you know, that we make a recommendation.
So
but
right now it sounds equitable, the premise that you said, as far as what's on the table.
Okay, Betty, would you just restate again what you had proposed?
Well, I just wanted to add too that don't forget that not only would, yes, there'd be more of a step up to get closer to paying the same amount of taxes on the same value, but there is a carve out for lower income for those people. So that is a factor. They get a 5-year step up. So it's not all overnight change in their taxes. And 3, they have a cap of an annual increases. So eventually they will still end up in a better tax place than people who live in more than 11 units in their building.
Wait. Betty, wasn't this one of the things that they were mad about de Blasio, that he was paying less for his Park Slope house than other people in another neighborhood?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now I kind of recall.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get a feel if people, because Betty made a proposal that we comment on. I was saying there are 10 recommendations. But so far, we've only discussed really that first recommendation. And so we make a comment on that first recommendation. And then Betty and Detta brought up the fact that, I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Betty, that there was a carve out for people who made lower income. Is that what it was?
Yeah, those are in there, and we don't have to opine on those, and that we don't disagree with them. I would say just to simplify it, because Mimi's right, this is really confusing, and for people to understand all the nuances, and simply say that we support moving buildings with fewer than 11 units toward parity with those buildings that are bigger and share the same valuation on those homes.
Can we say it just like that? We have the recording. Lucius, can we say it just like that?
Absolutely.
Huh? Okay. Diane, what do you say?
Oh, that my phone is ringing just as, I'm sorry. I guess my question, I think followed along with what Mike was saying. They're concerned about, I think equate small homeowners with small landlords, and they may not, I mean, when you're talking, I guess maybe that would fall under the carve outs for maybe lower income or like the real small, we're not talking about the $1 million, McMansions. I think if I could get some clarity on what carve outs would be. I generally do support it, but I just have some qualms about the smaller property owners. That's
Elizabeth, what do you say?
I'm not following. I don't feel comfortable. If we were to vote on something right now, I wouldn't feel comfortable voting on it. I don't know if this is something that, as Mimi suggested, we can push off to next month. No, we can't.
Can't.
Right?
Either we don't comment at all, or we comment, with what Betty suggested.
But all is not lost, because this is a door that you've opened to a greater understanding for all the members, including myself. I've learned a lot through this discussion and reading this report.
Okay, who else hasn't commented? Was that everybody?
I have a question, if I may, when it's my turn.
Justin. Justine, this question?
May I?
Was it you, Justin?
That was me.
Yeah.
So Betty, the proposal is saying that
you're breaking up.
The proposal is saying that we're in accordance, we agree with creating parity for the smaller class buildings under 10 units or less, to be charged more tax. Basically what we're saying is to be charged more tax with some carve out for low income people, correct? That's what it's saying, you were saying?
No, I didn't. I made it more simple than that. And simply said
Okay,
for that
tell me.
group, 10 and less, that they be moved towards this effort, that they move towards more parity.
But that's not what this, by moving them into, so I guess what's driving me batty with it all is by moving them into the class 1 homes, it is not putting them on parity with the large buildings. I guess it's not, it's moving them from being taxed based on the available rental value, where I guess at that size, they're probably being valued less than they should be, because
I'm not following you, Justin.
yeah, I know, I'm not following either. I find this so insane.
All right, shall we just vote on what
But
Betty
yeah,
had to say?
I
Okay.
guess, but my vote is no, because nothing in there is saying that they are, by doing that, it's not, well, whatever, vote. Go ahead, I could just vote no.
No, but by doing that, it's not what?
It is creating parity, or there is some parity they're trying to achieve by making them pay more, but there is no concomitant parity given to the people in the large buildings.
Okay, but that's not what they're
That's
suggesting.
not what this is
so
about.
That's not what we're voting on. We can separately, we can at some point make suggestions that, because what you're saying is you want them to lower the taxes on the people who live in the larger buildings.
No, I just want them to put a cap. I want everybody to be treated the same. If they all want to put everybody in on the sales basis, make it so.
But aren't we discussing that the people who live in the larger building are not in parity with the people who live in the larger building? And so we are trying to make it the same.
No, they're not. I guess that what I'm trying to tell you is that what they're, when you read the whole thing, and then Detta, tell me that I'm wrong with understanding this. What they're doing is creating a situation whereby they can collect more money from single family homes and collect more money from the smaller co-ops and condos, while at the same time continuing to tax and do whatever they want to collect to fill their budget gap from the large buildings. Because whatever they're doing with the single family homes and the class 1 houses as they're recapping it, there is still some level of cap each year. Like Jetta said, 20%
No,
over 5 years or 5% a year.
No, I
There's-
think
there's
they're
some-
going to get rid of that cap. I think they will.
I didn't see a reading of
I think-
that cap.
There is,
I think
that's-
Justine's thinking of the 5-year phase-in.
That's what I'm talking about, the 5-year
No.
phases.
They're getting rid of the cap. I mean, that's the whole reason that they're creating this new residential class and doing it
So there will be-
differently. And like Lucian said, I mean, the city council sometimes does lower the property tax. They did lower it last year. They might lower it again this year. So it's not a given that they're always going to
But-
raise it. And
No,
like
but what you don't understand, or what is not being understood here, is that what they'll do is they reduce the tax and then they play with the assessment. So it is all a game. So
I mean,
having
it's-
whatever caps we can to control the growth, but the answer is just leave. Because
I hear your frustration.
I'm
It's just-
so frustrated. I know, I don't know how to fix it, but
I mean, I see what you're saying. You're saying, hey, instead of raising their taxes, let's lower ours. But
or
that's not.
make it parity. I know, and then at the end of the day, where's the money going to come from? So I don't know.
Okay.
But Betty.
So
did
anyway,
have
that's fine. You
very
guys vote, do
simple,
what you want. My
generic
vote's going to be
wording.
no.
Okay. I mean, she
All
did.
right, let me propose, it is now 10-9, and we are going to call this, we're going to call a question. We're going to decide, we're going to vote on Betty's suggested verbiage. How's that? All right, everybody in agreement that we vote on this now? Any more conversation? I don't think we need to have more conversation. So can we just vote on this? Does everyone understand what Betty proposed? Okay. I think everybody, I don't hear anyone saying they don't understand it. So, Lucian?
Alrighty, here we go. Moore,
Yes?
Amoruso is no longer here. Kucha,
Justine?
Sorry. I vote no.
Flynn,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Kay,
Yes.
Pittering,
Upon further reflection, I think I'm going to change my vote. I'm going to abstain.
Schneck, are you here? No. Lewinson
I think I have to abstain.
and Goodkind.
Jill?
Sorry,
Is Jill still here?
Jill?
Still here, unless she's in the, look in the attendee part if she
All right,
bumped
hold on.
off.
I gotta change the
bumped
window.
off. Yeah, I know, but I don't see her. in the-
There's a call-in user. Hold on. Hello, call-in.
Yep,
Is this
hi.
Jill?
Yes. Yeah. Hi.
Okay, great.
Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Jill. Sorry about
Sorry.
that. Okay, Jill,
No, I'm
how do you
sorry.
vote?
Abstain.
Abstain? Okay. Diane?
I apologize.
No problem.
Abstain.
Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, the motion fails.
Okay. We're not bringing it before the board.
Nope.
Okay, so we're not making a comment. That's all. We just won't comment on it. And that's fine. That was one of the choices. And so we will come back around and continue this discussion, maybe not next month, but what's next month? June? Maybe in July, we'll continue the discussion. All right? Because there is going to be another comment period, right, Lucian?
I think it's possible. I think it's likely. I mean, they're going
I
to
thought I
have.
did. No.
This is the preliminary. They may, based on the testimony, they may have to do another draft. I'm not super well versed in what they're.
I thought I had read. Detta, did you read that?
I mean, they do seem to be moving forward with it. They had a hearing.
You guys,
silent hearing, and
I'm interrupting just to say I have to jump. I'm so sorry. Sorry, Detta. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, good night,
Bye.
Justine.
You want to be unmuted, Lucy?
The end of this month, they're having another hearing for Brooklyn, but it's by Zoom, so I think anyone can go.
Mm-hmm.
The city council is hearing people speak on it.
So maybe Lucian or Detta, if you have that information, and if you could give us that information, and we could at least go and listen if we're interested to the hearing they're having later this month.
Yeah, I will forward information.
Detta, thank you so much for being here to try to help us
For
understand.
real. Thank you, Detta.
Sorry you missed your. I hope you taped it.
I know the controllers forum. Who will
Yeah.
I vote for?
I know I think we're all in the same position. But thank you so much. We really appreciate you giving us your evening. So I know you come back to our committee often, so please come back and join us for more. All right, everybody, thank you for your patience. As always, it's been a good meeting. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and I'll see everybody next Tuesday, right?
Pat,
Bye,
after the
Pat.
meeting's over, Pat, can I just ask you, like, for a possible topic for next month?